This is gonna be fun.
Sweet, man.
It's nice to finally talk to you.
Jay
I
Ferris.
can't believe it, Matthew Cole, the
I,
man, the
I
myth.
didn't know how to pronounce your name until I saw you play solo the other day when you played that gig outside. I'm
That's
like,
so funny.
finally you introduced yourself. I'm like, oh, it's
It's
Ferris.
fair. Well, that's
And I'll also
hilarious.
be honest on another thing,
Yeah,
which is, I have a Kasha guitar, the Bella.
yeah.
I never knew how to pronounce his name till you interviewed him.
I didn't either. As you saw,
I
that was.
gave the guy I gave the guy my faith and money, and he gave me a beautiful axe, and
Didn't
I didn't
even
even know how to
know.
pronounce his name.
Well, now we do. That's why I started doing these podcasts, is so we could find out little things like that.
Absolutely.
Well, that's awesome, man. How about, since we've already kind of started, why don't you jump right into your story, and let's hear about how Matthew Cole got to where he is today.
Sure. It's like an AA meeting for Grateful
Grateful
Jerry nerds and other
fanatics,
people.
exactly. It really is.
All right. Well, I'm 55 years old, and currently I'm a associate professor in a College of Business and IT here in Southfield, Michigan, called Lawrence Technological University.
Awesome.
And now I'll backtrack and and I'll get back into that
Okay.
because it's kind of cool the stuff I do here on campus related to the Grateful Dead. Everybody thinks I'm a bit crazy, and you can tell by my office wall behind
It
me.
looks themed.
I have a signed Herb Green photo of the
Oh,
'87 summer tour with Dad and Dylan,
whoa.
which he sent me after I sent him a DVD. Like I started synchronizing DVDs back. I'll get into that, but
That's
he
cool.
wrote me and he's like, "Man, I saw you have all these DVDs because I at one point I kept my list really clean on db.etree.org,
Okay.
which is that database for all the eTree org, and everybody can put like their tapes collections up there. And I
Yeah.
guess he was searching there, so I sent him one, and then he sent me back a bunch of stuff, a cool signed book, calendar, and
Whoa.
he sent me this, and I'm like, "Do you want any money for it?" He's like, "No, thanks a lot."
That's so cool.
So that's
Wow.
my, and then of course the Jay Blakesberg book, Between the Dark and Light, I think is what it's called, and I ordered that early enough that it was one of the signed copies.
That's
So
so cool. But
every time I go in and out of my office, well, mostly when I leave, because that's my door out. I see Jerry. My door in on the other side, it is a framed photo in big letters. It says music, and underneath it, it says gives wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, and life to everything.
beautiful.
So whenever I'm trying to write my scholarly stuff, my head is still in the world of music,
That's
which maybe helps because music is probably primarily our right brain stuff,
very
uh,
interesting.
emotions, and more of the abstract reasoning, and our left brain. Well, it depends on what hand you are. I guess for the right-handed folks,
Yeah.
majority of us are the we can kind of easily parse the brain hemispheres. So left is more of like the verbal and very linear and sequential.
I'm a
So I
lefty.
guess the lefties have maybe a leg up on us on some
I don't
creativity.
know
Are
if it's
you?
a leg up.
Yeah, an arm up, a brain up.
Oh man.
Anyways, I my life really was laid out early on to be a musician, a professional musician. My parents were totally supportive of that. They're both scholar academics. My father, who passed away, was a senior research scientist at Ford,
Wow.
and my mom, retired former superintendent of a school district here in Michigan. So
Awesome.
both of them came from Canada, some first generation American,
Cool.
and they loved culture. That was, the gig for most people who are certainly who are musicians. I think somewhere along there was nurturing of the need to get plugged into music
Yes.
as something for the soul, and it's what people pay money for, and it's really a sign of esteem to be involved in culture and arts, at
Thanks.
least in my parents' generation. So, and that's what I got into, right? That's the nurturing, and it wasn't
Yeah.
like, well, what's going to be your backup
Yeah.
plan? It was
Exactly.
always like, make it your career, and it's prestigious to go to a concert and put your suit and tie, at least for classical music,
That.
and
Yeah.
listen to the stuff that was written centuries ago.
Yeah.
So that was really my musical motivation early on, primarily for my parents, was classical music.
Okay. Cool.
So at 8 years old, I like went to this pretty famous summer music camp in Michigan called Interlochen.
Cool.
It's like a full 2 months of music during the day and camping and all sorts of cool stuff at night for the campers.
Genre specific, or was it just all
It's yeah,
music?
classical
Okay,
music.
all classical stuff.
Totally.
Cool.
So like, you are taking lessons every day and then
Yeah.
you audition. Well, they don't really audition. They just see it's like a placement test. What level of orchestra are
Yeah.
we going to put you in?
Yeah.
And that was after I was given piano lessons at like 6 years old. And I
Cool.
guess
So
I
just
just
piano at this point, or are you learning anything
well,
else?
around 6 years old, it was just piano. But just a couple years later, I was like, I need to make more noise. So I guess
88 keys wasn't enough for you?
no. And I guess my mom is like, "Well, why don't you try the trumpet?" And I fell in love with it. And that was it. I could blow everybody away.
That's
I could play as
awesome.
loud as I wanted, and
Yep.
and so I did that basically professionally from like, well, I did training from 8 years old until I was, I guess, about 22, and I did it professionally from like 1983 until 1995 as a trumpeter.
Wow.
And so I did this interlocking at 8 years old for 4 summers in a row, which was just totally awesome. But during that summer, during those summers, I also did classical guitar and oboe and percussion.
Awesome.
It's interesting about the percussion because I really got my rhythm down, but as a guitar player, I still have to practice with the metronome because my brain gets ahead of with the ideas, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
some guys can really like lock into it. Like I think you lock into it really
Oh,
well, but like
thanks.
I'm learning how to lock into it without a metronome, but I do need to practice with the metronome all
Gotcha.
the time.
That's
My
really
biggest
interesting.
problem is rushing. Well, I think it also could be just the notion of the trumpet. Like the trumpet in an orchestra is in the back row.
Yep.
So when you follow the conductor, if you play right when the conductor is giving you the downbeat, you're going to be
Slightly
late.
off. Yeah.
So I was always trained, kind of anticipated a little bit, and I think I never, it's been I had to unlearn some of this trumpet stuff to get into more swing and certainly to play Jerry style, which we can talk about. But all these summer camps were just awesome, and I went to Brevard in Asheville, North Carolina, one summer, and
Very cool.
I did 3 summers at Aspen Music Festival, which is really hard because I had to audition into that, and they only take like maybe like 8 trumpeters across the world can get into
Wow.
that every summer. Yeah,
And you
so
did
I was
two
really
summers of that, you
good.
said?
Three.
Oh, three. Holy moly.
Yeah, that was my real, my big summer of playing music for people, not on the trumpet.
Cool.
Because my guitar playing after I played classical music at Interlaken was always a bit of a hobby, and I never really studied at it. But I do like melodies a lot, so I wanted to sing, and I learned how to play guitar enough that I could back myself up with a bunch of songs.
Wow.
And unbeknownst to me, Red Rocks was such a big thing, and I didn't get a chance to see Red Rocks '82, Red Rocks '83, the Grateful Dead, and I was right there, right
Wow.
around the corner. But I did see Pat Metheny
Oh, cool.
and Dixie Dregs with Steve Morris in summer of
Yeah.
'83. So Red Rocks was killer. I ended
Oh
up
my
going to Red
God.
Rocks the next year in '84
Wow.
because my last year doing these summer music festivals was in Santa Barbara in 1984 called Music Academy of the West.
Cool.
Another one of those, competitive entry type of things. So you're expected to like really focus on,
Knowing
I'm
your
expected to
stuff.
focus on my trumpet playing and be in the orchestra, and
Yeah.
a lot of audience members come and they like support the festival. But that summer I was totally in the
Just
Grateful Dead.
heads elsewhere.
Saw the saw the two Ventura shows in July '84, which kind of like ended the summer tour.
Okay.
A week after the killer '84 Dark Star at the Greek
Oh,
Theater.
nice.
I don't know if you're familiar with
I,
that,
I
but
couldn't recite it by name, but is it a extra long? Was it the
yeah, and
first
it's
time
an
they debuted
encore.
it like in many years?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it was an encore, and it was on a date in history, which is like a date. I guess it happens only every 30 years or
Of
so, which is
course.
a full moon Friday the 13th.
Oh, wow.
So July 13th, 1984, and I didn't get those shows, but I got the next 2 shows in from what I can tell, listening to the tapes, the Ventura shows might have been better, but it
Wow.
just, and I was so bad because like I think I had orchestra in the morning. These are shows like in the afternoon. I quickly drove to Ventura, like a couple hours away, saw the shows, quickly went back.
Back to the day
Everybody's
job.
around me. Everybody around me is like, "You want to do mushrooms or psychedelics?" I'm like, "I gotta
Oh, I
go
have a
play
gig.
this intense music later." No, I'm not going to.
That's too funny. So that
But
was 84 was when this love hit you, or was
well,
it?
I'd say the love really hit me when I got to Aspen. So I was in the Aspen Music Festival 81 to 83. I had
Okay,
seen the Grateful Dead in 1979,
cool.
January 21st
Wow.
at Masonic Temple. I was 14 years old.
Oh my God.
But I really had no idea of anything other than just here's another band, and
Yeah.
my friend's older sister took me, and I got drunk, which is not good
At
because it was
14. Oh.
this, yeah, the super cold of Detroit winter, and
Mm.
we had to wait outside before they let anybody in, and I drank too much Southern Comfort, so I really don't remember anything, but
Oops. That's in your subconscious somewhere.
yeah, but ironically, when I got into digitizing tapes and getting them up on archive.org, I have a few that I put up there, and
That's so
mostly my
cool.
work has been on DVDs. The one recording that's up on archive.org of January 21st, 1979 is one that I put up there.
No way.
Yeah, I didn't
So
record
you
it, but
weren't
someone
taping,
sent me
but you
the
were.
tape. Yeah, yeah, someone sent me the tape and I digitized it, and I put a little blurb about like some history behind it. My pseudonym and all this stuff is Matt Man.
Matt Man, thank you.
Yeah, so if you look on archive.org or any DVDs on YouTube that uh, Y- Yolodel
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
other guys put up there,
YOLO Load or yo, yeah.
something like that.
Something I know exactly.
Some of those are like either just putting up of what I did, or he's been doing a few sweetening. So yeah, Matt Man is. I've got a few things up there, but of course, the big guy and the guy that always amazes me is Charlie Miller. All his recordings up there that he's both taped and mastered.
So you
But yeah, so that's just interesting. Like I reflect on, it, I'm like, holy crap! The one show, my first show, ends up being the only show up on archive.org
wow. Well,
that
you
I
have a
did.
lot of different buckets going on then because you're the first professor I've gotten to talk to on this show. You're the first. Were you a taper? Would you have said a taper?
Yeah,
Okay, so you're the first
yeah,
taper I've gotten to talk to, I believe, and then
yeah,
now you have your feet in the digitizing world, which is that's
yeah.
time consuming. From
Oh
my
yeah.
like 3 hours, my dad had about 40 tapes, and I got ambitious one winter, and I was like, you know what? I think it's about time I do this. So I had a tape deck and started to plug them in and listen to them, and I was like, yeah, this is what I'm gonna do all January. And I got about 2 shows in, and I was like, that's a lot of work.
I know. So your January turned into maybe about 6 years for me when I was
Whoa!
working on my doctorate degree at Wayne State University, and
Wow.
beginning in 2000, and I guess the year 2001.
Okay.
I had all this time, like I was waiting because at that time, when I got back into school, I'll backtrack and lead into it because it's still part of my musical story.
Cool.
But when I was working on my PhD, I was doing animal research, and you set up an experiment. The animals, these were rats.
Yeah.
The animals got to go through it. It could take a couple hours for them to finish a session, and then you look at the data and you
You
interpret it.
mean it takes one dead set to get through
Yeah,
it?
right. So during that time, and thank God my advisor really had no idea what I was doing because I'm sure she would have kicked me out of her lab. I was just on the computer, like synchronizing soundboards with DVDs and
That's
getting it lined
hilarious.
up and rendering, and then having these big DVDs, and they've been traded and stuff. So yeah,
Wow. What
I've
got you into
been
the
pretty
visual
bad
side of
at that, but
things? Because you don't hear a lot of
oh well,
people who are
that's
into
yeah.
DVDs.
So right, so good. So I'll try to remember that. So after so I went to my first college education was in Cleveland Institute of Music in 1982 to 1985. When I was in high school, I took a bunch of like placement courses. They called it the International Baccalaureate program. So I could enter my undergraduate like as a sophomore. So
Nice.
I really only had to
Save
do
some
three
tuition.
years. Yeah, save tuition. I had a scholarship too. Again, another competitive gig. You know, I think. I'm not a religious guy, but I do enjoy coincidences. And a
Yes.
very interesting coincidence is that when I was driving from Detroit to Cleveland to audition to get into the Cleveland Institute of Music, I took some of my friends with me, and they were crazy, smoking weed in the back of the car.
Oh my
And it was
God.
winter time because it was like to start in the fall of 1982, you had to audition the previous year,
Okay.
and my car skidded off the road,
Oh
and
no.
then a cop car came up, and this was on the toll road where there's strict cops,
Yeah. They're
and
looking for
this
things.
female police officer comes up to the car, and I've got Grateful Dead playing on the radio,
Mm-hmm.
and I know she smells the weed.
Yeah.
And she goes, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm going to go audition for music school in Cleveland." And she's like, "Well, please drive carefully. Have a good day." So I don't know if it was the Grateful
Wow.
Dead or
No,
just
that's
whatever. I
crazy.
mean, I could have been that could have been the end of, you know.
Whoa.
So I don't
That's
know.
goosebumps right there. First
I
goosebumps.
just call that, luck, big
Yeah.
luck, and in our everyday parlance we say divine intervention,
Mm-hmm.
but it really doesn't matter. But anyway, so
Whoa.
I went there. I got into Cleveland Institute of
And
Music,
you
and
got in.
that was really where I got. Okay, so I forgot to say
Yeah, sorry.
In Aspen Music Festival in 1981, I was 16 years old, and I sold my meal ticket. Like my mom had bought the camp tuition and a dorm and the meal plan, and I sold my meal plan so that I could buy a guitar.
Oh my God.
So I had this Ovation guitar, and my roommate was a violinist, and he was totally into Jethro Tull
Okay.
and Crosby, Stills and Nash, and no Grateful Dead, but I learned how to back him up. He was a great singer, and so that, and then the next summer I came down with my friend from Detroit, Woody Rose, who's a great keyboard player in a bunch of bands. I want to describe all these Detroit bands in a minute
Yeah,
that play
please.
Dead, but we started playing a bunch of Grateful Dead like on the mall. Like Aspen has this beautiful mall set up where people walk down it. There's
Strip of
restaurants on the
grass and
side.
stuff with
Yeah,
the. Okay.
yeah. So that's kind of when I my love for the Grateful Dead as a musician and somebody who digs the music. And I just remember because I drove from Detroit to Aspen and beginning in 1982, I flew down there in 81. But I drove each drive was just total Grateful Dead all the way, and just those memories are burned into me like classic shows,
Cool.
Summer '78, and
You're listening all across the board at that point, or
yeah.
did you have a preference for like the recent sound or the beginning?
Mostly, I hadn't really gotten into the. It was the contemporary stuff. Maybe
Okay.
'78 was the
So,
oldest I got
but
back to.
78 to whatever the current
Yeah,
year was.
yeah,
And
because the people that I had met in Aspen that had given me tapes when I was there the summer before, because I kind of think part of also this luck is heads kind of get together
hmm
coincidentally, but somehow we're brought
it's,
together.
yeah, it's maybe more
Like,
than coincidence.
yeah, like that summer when I was 16, like I met the coolest people and everybody gave me tapes, and it was really a big eye-opening experience, and I part of that community made me love it, and it's a lot different than classical music. I mean, classical music, I think there's a different scene, obviously, and you're totally in your head. It's completely cerebral. It's no wrong notes. It is pay attention. You serve at the pleasure of the conductor,
Yes, exactly. I was gonna say at the
right?
mercy, but at the pleasure is probably a better word.
Right. And it's also very nerve-wracking, which is another reason why I like the freedom of just being able to play what I want.
Yes.
And that nerve-wracking is that you are rewarded for playing passages flawlessly,
Yes.
and you're punished for making any type of
There's
mistake at all.
there's both
And
positive
that
and
mis
negative reinforcement going on.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
Uh,
I'm a psychologist. We would say
oh.
we would say rewards and
Oh,
punishment
rewards.
because
Okay, thank you.
negative reinforcement is
Enforcement.
still reinforcement,
Okay. Oh.
right?
Okay. We'll have to talk about
Right.
that. I would want to know.
Well, negative reinforcement is when you take away the stimulus and your behavior is rewarded, like opening up an umbrella. When you don't open up an umbrella, you're taking away the negative stimulus of rain.
Yes.
And so in the future, you will open your umbrella more often,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
Like when you play the guitar, when you find a note that is awful and then you find a new way to finger it and it works out, that's negative reinforcement because then you're like, I don't want to feel that uncomfortable pan
Oh yeah,
position
yeah,
anymore
yeah.
or whatever.
Yep.
But punishment is like when you stop doing it. And the punishment in classical music is they just don't recognize you anymore. You don't get that foot shuffle on the ground when you play a cool note, or
Oh
people kind of
wow.
look the other way, or they're like, they laugh. And then you're like, holy crap. And so obviously you can't, real punishment would be, I'm not going to play trumpet anymore,
Yeah.
but you can't do that.
Yeah,
But
exactly. You can
what you can
do
either
it up here
find
in the
ways
mind.
to, yeah, you get it in your mind.
Yeah.
And for me, it was just a lot of anxiety.
Of
And
course. Do you?
I find it,
Excuse me. Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I was gonna say, do you think that maybe the love of the dead was somewhat reactionary? you know.
Totally reactionary.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I never became a why I'm not a professional trumpet player now.
Okay. Wow.
I became a professional trumpet player for 10 years and I
S-
tried really hard, but it was just brutally cerebral
Yeah.
and extremely uncomfortable.
Wow.
And I just found that there are other things I could do with my gifts and talents
Yeah.
that don't involve the trumpet. So I basically
So
stopped playing trumpet. Well, so I finished Cleveland Institute of Music, and I did some really cool stuff there. I did on my jury, which is like
yeah.
the final, yeah, it's
Yeah.
like writing a thesis kind of thing. I played Charlie Parker jazz tune,
Awesome.
and I played I did this totally out there electronic music piece where I went into the studio and I pre-recorded my trumpet part. Somebody wrote all this down,
Whoa.
and I played his piece. And part of it was to first go in the studio, record your trumpet parts, and then play live to you're answering what's on the tape.
Whoa.
And it was cool. It was like he had to teach me how to read all his signs, like little squiggly signs going up. And it was kind of like Zappa. It's like, well, what do you want me to do? There's
Okay.
like,
Okay.
do whatever you want, but just go
Let's
up
do
and
this.
go as high as you can, and then so like kind of improv. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's the stuff that turns me on. I want to do more improvisation. I since I didn't study jazz and
Yeah.
really learn how to play jazz trumpet at all, I brought in my buddy to play trumpet with me, and I played a couple of licks that I could play the melody, but I couldn't
Okay.
really solo.
Gotcha.
So he soloed with me, and he was a far better trumpeter. But it was perfect for the jury because again, I was trying to say. So I think my jury was Hindemith and Haydn, and then I did this jazz tune and this freaky trumpet tune, and my jury really loved it. My
That's
my
awesome.
jury was people from Cleveland Institute of Music. I studied with Bernard Edelstein, who's a famous principal trumpeter from the Cleveland Institute, Cleveland Orchestra.
Cool.
And then my last year, I studied. I think Bernie couldn't handle me because I was a little bit crazy, so he
It's always
pawned me
one of
off.
those.
Yeah, he pawned me off to the second trumpeter of the Cleveland Orchestra, David Zauder.
Ah,
And I'll never forget what the one thing David said to me that I'll never forget, and I still use it now. I don't do it enough before I play my gigs with my bands now, but I'm trying to do more. It's called the 7 P's of perfection.
ooh.
Proper practice and preparation prevents poor performance. So actually the six
Oh,
P's.
6 P's. I like that.
The 6 P's of being a musician.
Practice,
Proper practice and preparation
preparation
prevents
prevents
poor
poor
performance.
performance.
So I, now the hard thing is to remember I absolutely need 15 minutes alone before I go on stage
That's a big
to
thing.
get in my head and warm up. And so many gigs I don't do that, and I'm like, I find it's not my best gig,
If you
and
have those first 10 minutes on stage of you just like refiguring out your instrument. Oh yeah, this is this note. That can
yeah.
lead to lack of confidence for the rest of the show too.
Right. And so that was cool. And then so what ended up happening after that is after Cleveland I moved to New York City following my the trails of my stepbrother, Stuart Geltner, who is a film and video producer in New
Mhm.
York,
This is
doing
85 when you moved?
yeah.
Okay.
And so I flew to New York and auditioned for Juilliard and Mannes and Manhattan, the three
Mm,
big schools of music in New York. And I got into Mannes College of Music, and they gave
nice.
me like a year scholarship. So I'm like, excuse me, like heck,
Sweet.
hell yes.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So I went there to continue to try to be a trumpeter, and during, after I got my bachelor's degree, of course, I did the audition circuit, which again just reinforced how much I really don't want to do this as a professional trumpet player. I don't
Seems
know
like
if
a
you know
lot of
anything about,
stress.
do you know anything about classical orchestra auditions?
Very little. I went to enough of the music part of my school to have seen those folks and realized like, oh, glad I'm not those folks.
It's like, there's like, 200 men and women auditioning for one spot. And everybody that's there is trying to psych you out
Oh,
during the warm up, right?
oh,
So guys are like playing crazy
just
shit on their trumpet.
shredding
Yeah,
on. Okay,
shredding
yeah,
on the trumpet.
okay,
This is right. This
yeah.
is
I
for
got
like
you.
so I
Trumpet.
auditioned for the Denver Symphony and the Utah Symphony, and I think that's the only two I did. And after those two, I'm like, this is not for me.
Can you explain to those who are not as familiar with classical? I imagine that a symphony job as a trumpet player or something that would be the gig, or what would
Yeah,
you?
that's
That's the
that's your
gig.
dream. Yeah,
Okay,
and it's total salary and nights.
okay.
That ends up being what you do day and night, and
Whole
play
life
a
typically.
season. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
It's the really the rest of your life.
cool.
Because if a gig like that pays super well, and you've been identified by your peers that you are worthy of the job, and
Wow.
that's what you're striving for. I mean, that was my training. My training from basically 10 years old until I left Detroit to go to Cleveland was classical trumpet, and I studied with this guy Irving Sarin, who was trumpet principal trumpet player with the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra under Fritz Reiner and William Steinberg, which is like the heyday. That's like studying under Jerry during like Fillmore
Oh my
69,
god, that's awesome.
right?
Yeah.
Well, it would
Or
be as
so,
if Jerry were retired, and when Jerry was professional, his big moment was like 69.
yeah,
So
and then
so
retired,
this
and then now
guy,
he's teaching or
yes.
whatever.
So this
Wow.
guy, his big moment was the 40s, and the 40s in classical music was like incredibly, it, it was
Explosive?
it
What
was
would?
insane, yeah, robust,
Okay.
and just the people making new interpretations, and then after that you get like Leonard Bernstein, and where we're at today. I haven't really been studying too much on
Mhm.
composers and
I have.
conductors
I
these days.
can never.
But anyways, this guy, like, every Saturday I had a private lesson with him, and he just kept hammering into me, licks that first trumpet plays in an orchestra, and getting my mind ready to be a professional trumpet player.
Wow.
And then I would do that in practice during the day, and then at night play guitar and totally get my mind somewhere
And
else,
at this
right?
point, the guitar stuff, I'm imagining it's transitioned out of classical guitar, and you're playing songs that you want to play, or how does that work?
Well, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, part of what I've been having to learn now, it's a total work in progress because I've never really studied jazz guitar or rock
Mm-hmm.
guitar, anything real well,
Right.
is hand placement. So I trained a lot with my thumb, on the back of the neck, and that can be really taxing on your thumb. So it's
Yeah,
learning how to bring my thumb over, reposition my hand. The classical did help me with my right hand, so
I bet.
I've always been finger picking, and one of the things I love about Jerry is all that finger picking
Okay.
stuff that
Yeah.
he interposes
The
with the pick.
rolling and yep.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
So I think the classical helped me learn how to read music, but I still need to look at tabs now because I don't really know exactly the best place to position it. So when I see some tabs, it gives me kind of a cue what position I should start on the neck,
Very
etc.
interesting. Wow, I'm just
Yeah.
thinking about the two distinction, like you talking about that background. We talked to Josh Olkin, who comes from a jazz background, which I think is
Yeah.
arguably maybe better suited with the improvisational
Totally.
stuff, with the focus on that.
Yeah.
Like you can kind of
Yeah.
do it without thinking. And me,
Yeah.
my music reading is very poor. I made it through enough to kind of pass my exams, but
Good.
but like for me, I look at a page of music, I see the first note, I'm like cool, and then my eyes stay right there, and then the rest of that passage is whatever I believe. That's the one extreme, and it's
Sure.
not particularly helpful in anything that deals with written music, but it's certainly like it's very freeing because I know that all
Right.
right, my ears are guiding me now. Like I know it's gonna sound right or wrong here, but
Right. And that piece about the guitar, sort of mixes with me with the trumpet as far as like melody.
Yeah.
And that I think that's another reason why I was kind of drawn to Jerry in particular, because like the blues guys, like I liked it, but there's so much clarity in Jerry's of distinction of notes, I
Yes,
guess is
yes,
what I'm
yes.
trying to say.
Yes, exactly.
And also I think he's he swings, but he doesn't swing on the far end of jazz,
Yeah.
and he's not totally, you know, rigid on the left side of classical music.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's something I could pull off as a guitar player, kind of. I mean, I'm still
No,
trying to figure out how to
man, you've
pull it
been
off.
doing it for so long. I think your name was one of the first that I saw when I was like looking up this tone stuff. I was like, how do we do
Well, yeah,
this?
that's as far as the tone goes. Yeah, my style is an everyday work in progress, and I mean, just the other day, I kind of went back to a pick holding style.
Yeah, you have one here. I
I
have one right here.
Yeah, I got one
We
up here.
can
Hold on.
demonstrate. That's a yeah. I'm glad we're talking about this stuff because this is just like everyday guitar player
Yeah,
business.
so
That's good to know.
this is from one of my colleagues
All
here who
right.
thought that, oh yeah, Matt Cole plays guitar. He's in that heavy metal tribute band that plays the Grateful Dead, so he gives me an Eddie Van Halen pick. I'm like, appreciate the pick. They're
Thanks.
not heavy metal. Maybe the name sounds heavy metal. It's totally
Raise.
anyway. So when I first really got back into learning how to play electric guitar, which was around when I was 50, so like 5, 6 years ago. It was really
Oh,
my journey in this has only been like about 5 or 6 years.
wow. Okay, we're gonna have to back up to 95 at some point
Yeah,
here.
I know, but let's get into
Let's
this.
do this.
I was I loved watching guys on YouTube, and Trey for some reason really stood out as like I like all the different ways he can create tones
Mm-hmm.
between his right hand and his left hand.
Yeah.
And I studied a lot in his right hand, and he has this style. And I also like Zappa, who kind of is a little bit like this as well,
Yep.
right? Jerry, of course, without the finger,
Yep.
whatever,
Yep.
he's more like holding the finger, right?
Pretty
More
open
like this.
hand, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
very open hand. So I really learned my scales when I started practicing it in all my modes this way. And I could actually play much better than this. But when I was studying more of the Jerry stuff and trying to see if emulating him helps
Yep.
me, I did this for a couple, really for a couple years, and only in the last month or so have I been like, that was a kind of a dumb idea because I actually play much better like this.
And can
Why
you
did I spend all that time?
you're basically the big difference between these two positions for those who can't see it super clearly is that you're doing a side you're talking about the side of finger index finger right now that
Yeah,
hold
yeah,
okay versus sort
yeah,
of a more pinched grip with
yeah,
the pick.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah, yeah. And also then I also liked, playing some notes while I'm picking with my fingers.
Yeah,
And like this, I thought it was going to be easier, but it's actually easier like this for me because I'm already getting my hand in a nice position like this and my fingers are free to
that's
move.
really cool. Where do you tuck the pick? Do you have a pick tucking
Yeah,
location?
I actually tucked
Curious.
the pick kind of where I guess where Jerry did between right the
Nice.
first and the
So you
second.
get it in there because I cannot hold it there for the life of me, and I've always had this weird ridge in my finger. And
Yeah,
so, oh, you can't see it because sorry, I'm showing my podcast camera. But I'll hold it like this and then go
yeah,
about the finger picking that way. It's
yeah,
so cool though.
yeah. So this just seems to work for me. I don't know if it was just because I wanted to figure out how Jerry did it, or it just sort of happened one day. I was like, just play. I had it like this,
Yeah.
but I couldn't get it out well enough, so I put it here,
Yeah. What's that
and I
motion
can
look
just pull.
like?
Well, it's like boom, 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 boom,
Oh,
boom,
sweet.
boom, boom,
Oh,
boom.
that's real easy.
Yeah, so
Cool.
that's what I do,
That's
and
awesome.
it's really hard with a thin pick,
I'm
and it's
sure.
really hard with a pick that doesn't have ridges on it. So that big 2 millimeter
Adamas right
Adamas
here. Yeah.
pick, yeah, or
I
Adamas.
don't know. I've never said that out loud before. Forgive me if I
I
said
think
it
it's
wrong.
Adamas. Who
Adamus.
knows?
I'm down with that.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I'm probably wrong, but it just it works on. I rarely drop it, but
Cool.
so the point being, the take home message is that to me, guitar playing is like a work in progress. To just be able to play what I hear in my mind in a way that doesn't that's easiest.
Yeah. Well, getting out of
So,
your own way is kind of like the first
right.
10 years of guitar anyway.
Right. And I mean, although we could say, well, how long have you played guitar? Well, I've been playing guitar since I was like 8 years
Eight.
old, but I didn't really work at it
Yeah, exactly.
to just make it my main area of focus
Yeah.
as a musician. And also the point that I wanted to make is I think it's easy to get stuck in a rut of trying to do something that's not easy for you. So
Yeah.
you should do what comes naturally, and that will probably tend to be the way that gets you the most
Yeah,
success.
if it feels too wrong or feels too weird or something, not to say
Yeah,
you're probably not doing it right because there's lots of situations where you're doing it exactly right and it's just a weird phrase or something. But
right.
if you're struggling with it, then like
Yeah,
the guitar is a matrix and there's
right,
many different places to play the same kind of passage. So that's what
right.
I always think about like explaining is just if it doesn't feel good then it's probably because it's meant to be played elsewhere and you can
Absolutely.
make it work elsewhere nine times out of 10.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I got to New York and studied at Mannes College of Music and studied with this really cool. This guy also helped me break out of my mode of being stuck that I had to be a professional trumpet player.
Cool.
And I was studying with him to be a professional trumpet player. His name was William Penzarella,
Cool.
who was second chair of the New York Philharmonic when I was there
Wow.
in the mid early. I guess he was there in the early to mid '80s till after I left. I left in '94,
Cool.
'95. But he also did jazz. Like he was a real like I'm a trumpet player that will play anything you need me to play.
Hire me
You
for a
want me to
gig
play
and
in the
I'm there.
orchestra? I'll
Yeah,
play in the orchestra. You want me to play the Metropolitan Opera? I'll play some of the opera stuff.
that's
I
great.
got an opportunity to go down to a jazz club and sit in and play a couple tunes. I can do that.
Is
And
he
play
in the
some
point
show music.
1% of trumpeters with
Yeah.
stats like that?
Well,
Or-
yeah, because there's like a few phenoms like Wynton Marsalis,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Wynton is the kind of guy that can play this beautiful, rigid, with nice tone
Mhm.
classical music, and then he's got that Lincoln Center jazz ensemble, and he can improv crazy. That whole New Orleans pedigree was
Yes.
part of his upbringing. So I
That's
didn't have
interesting.
that kind of upbringing. I had an upbringing from a guy who said, if you don't play the right way, you're not doing it right, and how dare you blasphemize the trumpet playing that I had to do in the 40s with Fritz Reiner. And he always used to tell me these stories of how, like, Fritz Reiner would say, play it softer. And then the guy would play soft and he goes, play it softer. And the guy would play it soft and he goes, you can't play it soft enough. You're fired. This is
Oh,
before music unions. And I'm like, you're joking, right? He goes, no,
jeez.
guys are getting fired left and right for not following this guy. I'm like, that scared the shit out of me.
I'd
I'm
have to
like,
talk to a therapist for a while about
I
that.
know. I'm like 14 years old, 13 years old, practicing classical trumpet, playing, whatever Stravinsky or
Oh my god.
Firebird Suite, which all these have great trumpet parts. And he's like, no, you played the wrong note. Play again or you're fired. I'm like, I'm paying you for private lessons. You're gonna
That's
fire
how
me.
it works.
Well, if you're not
Wow.
taking this seriously, I don't want to be your teacher.
So
So
that's what you hear the majority of the educational life then and then it's only what 82, 85 where you get a new kind of
yeah,
experience
and
or
I go to Cleveland and that's really and thanks for bringing me on track.
oh yeah no I'm trying to
Because
keep track of the timeline I know what happens almost up to 95 but we're getting there.
my students always say that Dr. Cole is a really cool teacher, but he can go off on tangents. So sometimes you need to bring him back. Anyways, but I guess that's what
It's the
improv
best
is like,
teaching
right?
right yeah of
Right.
course.
Teaching is like, I think teaching is very improvisational because like I can play the melody of like Peggy O and then I can go way off and it's like, wait, let me try to bring it back. I
Yeah.
got to remember what I'm trying to do.
Oh, that's a really good metaphor. I want to talk more on that too, but later.
Yes. But the really interesting thing about Cleveland Student Music, it's part of Case Western Reserve. So I was paired up in a dorm my freshman year. Me as a trumpeter from Cleveland Student Music. I had an art student who's still a really good friend of mine, Louis Leibowitz, who's at Cleveland Institute of Art.
Cool.
and resident hall director, who was just a couple years in front of us, was, I guess he was liberal arts, but he was a total deadhead,
That's funny.
complete deadhead. I can't remember his
There's a
name,
lot of
but
those in the liberal arts. You find them
so
everywhere.
classical music during the day, cannabis at night with this guy, listening to the Grateful Dead. We went and saw Rochester 83, a bunch of shows in 83,
Wow.
taking Hookie off from Cleveland Institute of Music. And so I really give my formative college training at Cleveland Institute of Music, an A for trumpet and an A for Grateful Dead,
Cool.
due to the
That's
party scene in Cleveland, and it was, I have
wow.
still have some really good friends there. And everybody was like, it also amazed me like how folks were just totally focused on their area of interest in life. Like my one buddy, Doug Jane, who's still a really good friend of mine, he was like a chemist and he works for NASA now. And
Wow.
we were both deadheads together, me from the music side, him from the chemistry side.
Wow.
And like we would do our dead thing. And then during the day, we would like focus and get our training
Get your
in. And
yeah, get your grades.
yeah. So
Wow.
I give that thumbs up for training, and I've learned in hindsight, about the Grateful Dead scene at that time, and that I guess that was a pretty good scene to get involved in the early to the mid '80s.
Sure seems like it.
And then so I get to New York, and
I think the
I never graduated with my, so I got my bachelor's of music from Cleveland Institute of Music, but I
okay.
never got my master's of music from
Okay.
Mannes College of Music because of how I sort of engineered my career at that point, which was, look, I didn't get into the Denver Symphony, I didn't get into the Utah Symphony.
Done with
I'm probably
symphonies.
not good enough to be a trumpet player in a major U.S. orchestra,
Okay.
but I love music and I don't want to not be a musician. And how can I parlay that into a career?
Yeah.
Well, again, through just the world of fate, or however we want to describe it, through my brother's connections, I met this guy, Stephen Bray, who Stephen Bray was a drummer, founding member of this band called the Breakfast Club. Stephen Bray was Madonna's first producer. Get into the groove
Wow.
and big Detroit techno scene.
Oh
So
my.
I was from Detroit, and my brother Stuart introduced me to all these cool people. This guy David Daniel, who's a good friend of mine, he's a director. He owned this video store called Time Shift Video on Broadway and Bowery,
Cool.
and across the street was Keith Haring's studio. So there was this whole scene of like people in the arts,
Yeah.
whether it be audiovisual arts
Mm-hmm.
or painting and drawing. Most of it was audiovisual, obviously. That's what I
Cool.
got tuned in. So when Stephen Bray, this was 1987, when I should have been really studying hard to take my jury in
For masters.
1987,
Yeah.
right, to graduate, I took off into 86 during finals to see the East Coast tour, Grateful Dead, Portland, Maine, and Philly, and Hartford, and I was already done with classical music by that point,
Yeah.
but I was getting plugged in. So the Stephen Bray pictures that he basically gave me, he had opened up a little recording studio in the basement of this building video store called Time Shift Video, and basically gave it to me for a couple of grand. It was a half inch 16 track, no, half inch 8-track Fostex, right? The half-inch 8-track Fostex recorder with I think there was a SMPTE
Yeah.
sync box,
Oh my
and I had
god.
3/4 inch video and half-inch video, and I could synchronize to the video. And he gave me DX7 and Mark of the Unicorn, early version of Mark of the Unicorn, uh, a MIDI controller.
Wow. I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, and I had my Apple SE, I guess, right? Apple SE after I think that was the one after the Apple II, the big standalone. I think
That
it was called the SE.
cool. That was right
Could be
before my
wrong.
time.
Yeah, it's
That's
like totally ancient, but it had enough power that it communicated with the keyboard for MIDI in, the
Wow.
out with the SMPTE on the tape
In
that synchronized
87.
it. Yeah,
Oh my God.
synchronized it with the tape player
Yep.
and through this. All right, so I got into MIDI and I had drum machine and I learned how to do all the programming.
MIDI had
So
literally just come out. That was like
yeah,
an 85, 86 invention,
yeah,
right?
and so I'm not actually sure that timeline, but I know
Okay.
it was definitely at the beginning and it was super expensive if you bought it new.
Yeah.
So the fact that he was basically giving it to me because Steven went to LA
Okay.
to do all his stuff
So
and
he don't
continue
want that
producing
anymore.
Madonna. Yeah. And he was like, I don't want this to die. And so I met a bunch of people there and I met some video directors and ended up saying, I want to open up a recording studio. So I ended up getting some money from my parents that invested in me and my uncle and my co business owner founder Josh Heineman, who's still very prolific in the music industry in New York City. He and I started a studio called Soundtrack City,
Awesome.
which initially was just based around this simple little half-inch 8 track. But the fact that we knew how to synchronize with video, we knew how to do MIDI programming.
This early on too. Holy
Yeah, so
moly.
we got a bunch of club artists and did a whole bunch of sweetening for people that have since gone on to be professionals of business, like Kevin Bray, who's a film and video producer out of California now, and
Wow.
I did ended up parlaying that business, which was just like maybe like 15 to $35 an hour guys off the street that want to create a rap song, hip
Yep.
hop, or do the next club hit.
Yeah.
So there's some opportunities that were pretty cool. I worked with this guy Freddie Bastone, who's a DJ, and we ended up doing some. I did the engineering. I guess my official title on that is engineering
Perfect.
of a was not was tune. So that
Cool.
was pretty cool and called "Anything Could Happen." And I think if you go on
I have
YouTube
to
and
look it
search
up.
"Anything Can Happen," yeah, you can hear that club remix. It's pretty kind of funky,
That's awesome.
and then I got into music video production. So
What year?
I would
88.
yeah, 88,
Okay.
88. So through my friends at Timeshift Video, we did Village People and LL Cool J and Das Effect, a lot of
Wow.
big East Coast hip hop artists around
Awesome.
like the time when Yo MTV Raps was getting big.
Okay.
So there
That's the
wasn't a
video
lot of
side of
money.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and a lot of money was not being spent on music videos. So,
Yeah.
and I was a producer. So, a producer for videos is a lot different than a producer for music. Producer
Exactly.
for film and video, you're more like the director of an orchestra.
Gotcha.
In Let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
You're the director in terms of do you have your instruments and here's the budget I have.
Mm-hmm.
You're not the director to say do this or do that.
Yeah.
That's actually why on a film it's called a film director.
Correct.
On a film, the producer is more like the
It's a
coordinator, getting
step.
everybody together.
Yeah. One step
Yeah,
back and
like
above.
here's the 3 guys we should hire for to do the grip work, and
Yeah.
here's the guys we should hire to be the gaffers,
Cool.
and et cetera, et cetera.
So
But in music,
still
the
management
producers are
though.
more like I meant to say earlier. The music is more like a producer in music is more like the director. That's where you tell the artist, I think it'd be
Yeah. Yeah.
better if you do this
Yeah.
or try this. So
Maybe a
I
little
did music
shaker.
production. Yeah, I did the music production and and I was doing the film production and both were optimal for my particular talents
That's
of I
awesome.
guess a combination of right brain left brain. The
Yeah.
music is more the creative production piece, like
Yep.
try this sound or let's try a different pitch for the cowbell, and
Yeah.
then the left brain, the more linear, is like, well, I have $15,000 to work with, how can we get this music video made,
Yeah.
etc. And that was cool because I learned about the whole scene and made arrangements with a lot of companies in New York,
That's
and that
awesome.
was fun. But the bottom line is one of the things I wanted to say when I
Yeah.
opened up my studio in New York, which was on Broome and Broadway, by the way, for
Cool.
those that are interested in Little Italy. I ended up buying a 2-inch 24 track, which is part of Willie Nelson's tax problem payoff
That's
piece.
hilarious.
Yeah, it was like up for an auction, and I guess people are like, why do we want this antiquated Ampeg or Ampex? Yeah, Ampex. 2 inch, and we can get this new burgeoning digital world. And I like jumped at it.
You're
It
like, no,
was
this is big.
so warm, such a cool machine. I loved every day setting it up, setting the bias,
That's
and
awesome.
but buying equipment was really, really expensive. It's like leasing a car. Like the board that I think we bought was like $700 a month.
Jeez.
The rent in my studio, which is a renovated loft back in
I'm real
88,
curious to hear this
89, is
number.
$3,000 a month. And it's like, so
That's too
every
much.
penny I made was just paying the bills. And for a
Too much
20-year old,
overhead.
who gives a shit if you're 20 years old? But I'm like, I was so embarrassed when I was, late paying bills. Like I had to call my mom or
Yeah.
my dad. I'm like, can you guys float
Dang.
me a grand here or a grand there? Or, and it was just like, they're like, yeah, no problem. They said, yeah, no problem because they love me. But me,
Feels
I'm like,
weird. Yeah.
yeah, I felt guilty that so it just was a time in 1994 to make a change. And plus, it didn't hurt that the business went bankrupt.
Yeah. I mean,
So
you got out at the right time.
we
It
had to
seems
go
like.
bankrupt because we had these leases and we just couldn't get enough work. So I
Oh,
basically, I'm not embarrassed to say I used the tax system the way it is, and I wasn't a dick about it. I paid everybody that I owed
nice.
all the money, but I defaulted on the leases to my equipment, which I wasn't going to use anyway, so it was
Yeah.
just taken back.
Cool.
And yeah,
That's a
but
fair way to do it. I mean, if you have to,
yeah,
you have to.
that was kind of how I am. I was like, I can't let people that worked for me that are counting on this, all these gig workers,
Yeah.
not get, even if it was like $100 for doing a couple hours or
Still,
whatever.
you mean that's fair and that's beautiful that you
So
paid them
I
all.
took off. I went to Florida to clear out my brain. And,
Wow.
oh, I
Yeah. So
forgot to
this.
say one thing. One
Yes.
thing, which is another reason why I got out of this part of the music business. I had at that point for about 2 years, from like 1992 to 1994, I started doing music therapy at
Very
nursing
cool.
homes.
Oh my.
And music therapy is where you're using music to help mental illness or using music to help with physical rehabilitation.
Yep.
So I would go to these nursing homes and I got the gig because on the board at Mannes College of Music was a sign that said looking for musicians to come play at nursing homes.
Very cool.
So I grabbed that, but I never used it, and I still had it in my pocket by the time I left Mannes and was doing my recording studio. And I was like, what the hell? I need
Why
to
not?
continue to make some money. I wonder if they're paying.
Yeah.
And I called the lady up, and I still remember to this day going to this nursing home in the Bronx, which was a state-run facility. So usually people
No.
don't have family members. If you have family with some money, they probably don't want you in a state-run facility
Gotcha.
for the end of life. So these people had no visitors.
Wow.
And by this time, I had developed a pretty big repertoire of Grateful Dead tunes from memory that I really liked.
Cool.
And I would just play them Dead tunes all day,
That's
and I'd go
so
from
fun.
bed to bed to bed, or I would do a big sing along. For the sing alongs, I had to play some music
Something
from
more
their
identified. Yeah.
time.
But you had no problem with that, I'm sure, with your
No,
background.
no, it was fun,
That's,
like East Side, West Side, or
so are you
stuff
looking
like
at
that.
jazz standards or what? Like,
Not really jazz. I
not
guess some
standards,
jazz,
I
some
guess.
Cole Porter,
Okay.
Rodgers and Hammerstein, but mostly what we would call the popular music of the time, like
Okay.
East Side, West Side, all around the town. And
Okay.
they know that stuff. That's the music those people grew up with. So
So it just
even though they
comes
would
out
be
of
like
them.
catatonic in their bed, I would play
They'll
that
start
tune,
singing.
and then I would play stuff like I would play like China Doll or Must Have Been the Roses or other ballads, and their face would light up. They have no idea what I'm playing. They've never heard the song before, but it's
Wow.
something about music
Yeah.
that is so healing and therapeutic.
Truly.
And that's why I play music today. Like it's my soul. Like it
Yes.
it makes life important to me
That's
to
beautiful.
to play music. So that so what ended up happening there was they would pay me cash, maybe like $25 an hour or whatever.
Cool.
And then the lady said, if you had a degree in social work or psychology, you could bill the insurance company and make more
Ooh.
money.
Wow.
So that's when I decided I'm going to go back to school and study
So
psychology.
this is 94 or 5 ish.
95,
Okay.
yeah.
And how old are you at
95.
this point?
30.
30. Very cool.
Yeah, yeah. So 30 was like the life changing moment, and
Wow.
no plans for family or anything, but it's
Yeah.
just like let me let me see what else life has to offer me.
Yeah.
So long story short, I moved back home, and because that's where I grew up,
Yep.
and ended up going to a school in Ypsilanti called Eastern Michigan University, and got a second bachelor's degree in psychology. And then,
Wow.
of course, the obsessive nature of myself, it's like, that's not enough. And then I got a graduate degree in clinical behavioral psychology, and then another graduate degree in
Oh my
pharmaceutical sciences. And
God.
finally, I got a PhD in cognitive and social psychology
That's
across
awesome.
the lifespan. And all the while playing music. But the that was just at home playing music, like come home and relieve some stress by playing for myself. And I had no plugging into Jerry or any of that until I got till I was 50,
Hmm.
as far as learning to play Jerry licks on the guitar. But this thing of going back to school gave me an opportunity to get back into technology, and I got newer computers, and I was hearing about all this Grateful Dead music on the internet, and how do I get it? And I think it was David Gans through Grateful Dead Hour that kept talking about this stuff through The Well, is a, a bunch of computer nerds, basically, California, that are on the forefront with John. John, they are on it, and they were when John Barlow was there to really create more of a impetus for
This is the
technology's
well, you
role.
said?
Yeah, it's
Can
called the
you
Well.
explain that a little more? I'd never heard of
I
that.
don't know much about it, but think of it as like a Facebook group where the whole gig is to how can we use technology to better humanity.
Whoa.
So computers, the internet,
Okay.
ways to exchange information,
Gotcha.
and so through that I heard that there's these places where there's a lot of digitized Grateful Dead music,
Whoa.
etree.org, and there really wasn't an archive.org back then, but there was this software called Further, which is peer-to-peer
Yeah.
exchange of music, and I guess lossless legs and all that stuff. I don't know the dates too well, but once I saw all that, I started downloading furiously shows that I've always wanted, and I started uploading stuff that hadn't been rendered to MP3. I guess the format was SHN, shorten SHN. So if you go on archive, you'll see a lot of the suffix for these shows might be
Yeah.
.shn. SHN was like the first non-compress digital format.
That's unreal.
Yeah,
I'd never heard of that extension in my whole
yeah.
life.
Yep,
I
that's short, and
I
now it's FLAC, right? FLAC
Yeah,
is the
exactly.
industry standard.
So,
So,
question about what, because you're talking about technology here, and there's
mhm.
again so many buckets that we could talk about,
Yeah,
umbrellas, I guess. But the tech side of things is super fascinating to me, and as a as somebody who may or may not have downloaded some Pirate Bay files in my lifetime, I
right.
uh, I was always like, what lives in somebody that has a like a compulsive desire to upload and share, like what, because to me that's awesome, and I'm so thankful that
Right.
there were people that took the time to put these dead shows up. But like, how does what
Well,
lives
some
in
of
you?
it could be so some of it could be the renegade pirate nature of it for like Pirate Bay. Like between you and me, like I think I think where you're downloading stuff where artists could be making money
Yeah,
is kind of kind of shitty,
no,
and
exactly, absolutely.
but I think those guys that do that, that are always putting up movies, Hollywood releases,
Yeah,
or stuff that's not artist friendly. Like when artists say go ahead and do it,
yeah, yeah.
that was the shit I was into, the Grateful Dead.
Yes,
The other
exactly.
stuff, I think they're not doing it necessarily to make money,
Yeah.
and they're not being nefarious. I just think it's the pirate nature of them, and they're like,
Okay,
I want
it's the
to
Wild
give people
West.
an opportunity. Yeah, the Wild West,
Cool.
like the Pirate Bay, and that whole
S-
BitTorrent stuff
so
on
then
that. I
taking
think,
that to the Grateful Dead world where it's more
yeah,
permittable, how does what desire?
that was like the desire is like, look, there's a show that I have on cassette, and how can I get the best render of that analog cassette to digital and then share it with other
So it's
people?
just a desire to like do something new and creative and innovate, like
Yeah,
always.
and because that's the Grateful Dead spirit of share. You know, you're not. It's not about making money. We we end up being amazed that somehow we can make
Money
money
can be
at it.
made. Yeah.
But the deal is really someone comes up to you like, hey, here, brother, you know, here's a tape I just made. They just went and spent $20 and made their own 10 pack of like
Mm-hmm.
tapes and they hand it to you to show. Enjoy it.
Yeah.
Here's my name, you know,
Yep.
contact me later if you want. Maybe we can do some tape
And you
trading.
can then pass on the karma later on.
Right.
Yeah. That's
Right. In the
beautiful.
music. Yeah. So that's where that music came from.
Cool.
And probably also, at least for me, growing off of the bizarre reinforcement training that I got
Yes.
from classical music, it was an ego thing too. If
Yeah.
I'm rendering this and it goes up there and it says Matt Man,
Matt did
you
that
know,
one.
it's like cool, you know,
Yeah.
that's I'm not doing it for money. I'm just doing it because like the guys before me did it, right? Like
Yeah.
Charlie Miller's like cool or Rob Eaton, cool. It's like I
Wow.
don't know who Rob Eaton was, but I see his name all the time and then
Yeah.
you look and you see well that he was this huge taper prolific guy.
I didn't realize that.
Oh
That's
yeah,
pretty
Rob.
incredible.
Well, Rob was a recording engineer, is a recording engineer, and then then he Dark Star Orchestra and all
Yeah.
that stuff. But yeah, his gig, oh,
I didn't know
was
that history. That's pretty awesome.
yeah. So a lot of that was as well. And when the name's there, then slowly you get to intermingle with people, maybe either through email or
Yeah.
paper and pencil, mostly email, or chats.
Yep.
Further kind of had a pretty cool. They call them forums. Further had a really cool forum. Further was really cool. It was like BitTorrent within this proprietary software, and
I
the
think I
way you
missed
got the
out on those
shows,
days.
yeah, the way you traded the shows was the more people, just like BitTorrent, but with Further, it was like the more people you can get to plug in to join and be part of Further, the more we can get these shows traded amongst ourselves.
Wow.
And I don't know, I guess the video, just because of my video background, I love video, and I had software, I had Architect,
Cool.
the Sony stuff, and I had Adobe Audition, so I learned how to synchronize video audio with a soundboard,
Yeah.
and the joy was, can we improve, can we update
Yeah.
these cool in the public realm available DVDs of the Grateful Dead or of Jerry Garcia band or well, there wasn't Red Dog, but other
Put it
really cool bands.
so that.
I mean, I've done a lot of stuff. Pete Townsend. I still have a Pete Townsend that I'm not allowed to release. At
Whoa.
least that's what the person who gave me the
That's
DVD
pretty
said.
interesting.
Pete Townsend is and the Who are totally not like one of these trader friendly
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
artists.
Exactly.
They'll
I'm
like
sure
it'll get pulled
they would
down
cease and
nowadays. It would
desist.
yeah, and it will totally get slammed out of YouTube in like 5 seconds. But
Oh my gosh.
I got a bunch of stuff that amongst my friends are like, hey, can you synchronize this audio? And like
Yeah.
I'm doing work during the day on my PhD, and then I was working doing psychological testing. That's kind of how I was making money as a person administering intelligence tests
Oh my
and
gosh.
evaluations for people who are in the criminal justice system.
Wow. That's
Because
a
in
hell of a
Michigan,
job.
yeah, it actually pays really well, but it's super depressing. Is
Oh man.
everybody in I guess everybody in Michigan who's arrested, let me put it this way, everybody 18 years or younger who's arrested is required to get a psychological
Oh.
evaluation to find out the best way to help them get their life back together.
Gotcha.
Maybe they have some learning disabilities and they're doing their joyriding at 16 because they're just flunking math or English and they just need some basic skill training. And
Wow.
it's kind of sad, but that gig paid really well. So I would do that during the day, and then at night I'd come home and synchronize these DVDs for friends and mail them back. And eventually, that evolved into the year 2015.
Wow. Here we are. All right, so how
And
many
I
let's
was,
go over your credentials real quick. It's
uh,
2015. What
yeah,
degrees do you have?
bachelor's degree in music,
Music.
bachelor of science in psychology,
Cool.
master of science in clinical behavioral psychology,
Okay.
master of arts in pharmaceutical sciences, and a
Okay.
PhD in cognitive psychology.
It's neat. Are you ever gonna go back?
Well, it's interesting because now I teach in business, and our university is doing its 10-year cycle of accreditation by the bodies that do this accreditation. And
Hmm.
for the Midwest region of the United States, it's called the Higher Learning Commission.
Yeah.
And one of the things you have to justify is that all the faculty have credentials that support the courses they're teaching.
Okay.
So I had to sort of massage, like, how come I'm teaching business? Well, he's not teaching accounting. I'm not teaching finance.
Yeah.
But I'm teaching the stuff that's totally psychology, human resource management. That's humans and
Okay.
how humans function in organization.
Yep.
I teach strategy, strategic thinking, organization development, which is like the ways that you can rework an organization both internally and its physical nature to be more successful.
Yeah.
So I did it, we justified it, but I was always and I
Had to be
supervised doctoral
creative.
students in business, and I've supervised like 30 of them. And so it's like, well, how can you do that? Well, I know research really well because the thing about psychology is data and how to do a good research, how to do good research design. So I know that, and I do teach business statistics. So that
Cool.
is another one of my strengths. But
Wow.
um, but what's been cool before I get into the
Yes.
purely the Jerry stuff.
Yes.
So I'm sorry
Yes.
anybody watching it's taken
I'm
this long
enjoying it,
for
man. I
us
haven't
to
talked to
get
a
into the
professor in
to the
months.
Jerry. I have always played music for my colleagues, and I've always played
Cool.
music with my colleagues here at Lawrence Tech to play music. And our band, when I first started working here, worked in psychology. I ended up being the director of the psychology program
Cool. Amazing.
in the basement of our building. And I wanted to get back into some of the research I was doing when I got my master's degrees of pharmaceutical sciences. That was a
I feel like we
killer
skipped
degree.
over that maybe a little bit.
That degree was so killer. Well, the stuff leading up to it is how I learned to train to do the testing of people. That's
Okay, gotcha.
clinical behavioral science is mostly about learning how to be a clinician, but you're not doing like psychodynamic theory. You're not, or psychotherapy where you're talking to
Yeah.
somebody and helping, and you kind of resolve it to the
Solve their
past a lot
issues.
of the
Yeah.
times. Yeah. With clinical behavioral, it's really about uh, behavior therapy, which is very purposeful. How can we quickly change your behavior
Gotcha.
through manipulations in the environment,
Yep.
as well as bringing in psychological tests? What can we learn about you? Do you have memory problems?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's related to brain.
Yep.
Maybe you hit your head some point you don't know you hit your head. This
Wow.
stuff like
Are
Chris.
you working
Chris
with
would know this.
people of
Chris
all ages?
Ionati.
Oh yeah, he'd be awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, all ages, but then where I ended up getting the gig at was working with just the adjudicated youth.
Cool. Okay,
So
that makes sense how
yeah,
that led
so
up
that
to that.
company
Okay.
was called JAC, Juvenile Assessment Center,
Wow.
and that was interesting. But and so again, part of my story is I study, I give my heart and soul into trying to get a career out of it, and if it's not right, I'm moving on.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
So the juvenile, so right, the trumpet, I gave my heart and soul. It totally wasn't right. I moved on. I moved into
Perfect.
music therapy. The music therapy was going, but it's like it's still you know, you I just didn't find the passion there to be a professional music therapist. I wanted to learn more about the brain. How is the brain processing
Yeah.
music,
Yeah. Why
et
stop
cetera? How,
there?
in the younger, maybe, um, if I had started as a music therapist, maybe I would have ended up there. But
Yep.
the point being, so then when I went and did more of this college stuff, I got this job at the Juvenile Assessment Center after my master's degree in clinical behavioral. And it's like, this is interesting and it's very I know I'm helping people and I'm making relationships and I'm meeting really interesting people who are down on their luck or maybe young kids who are not really bad. They just got busted for a joyride and
Yep.
need to turn their lives around. And I'm like, I know that this isn't still my calling. And I wanted to know more about like the brain really got me. So that's when I
That's cool.
decided to go to Wayne State University and get into more of
Nuance.
biopsychology and the neuro side of things. And the person that hired me, because in graduate school, when you're really going to schools that are very competitive and they're looking, and that schools where faculty are doing research, they tend to pay you to go to the school,
Cool.
in the form of like a graduate research assistant or a graduate teaching assistant.
Cool. So you can continue to do that while maintaining a normal life, and
Right.
yeah,
And they're actually they're pretty good. They give you a good stipend plus they give you benefits
that's sweet.
and so you get full health coverage and you're making, a little bit of money
They're
like
investing in you, and you're investing
yeah,
in your
like maybe
future.
30 grand a year, which
Cool.
is you're a student.
It's
Excuse me.
great.
That's great.
That's
So
I'd take it.
I decided to stop the clinical stuff, go more towards deeper science. That got me into doing research with animals, and
Cool.
I ended up doing really cool research on alcohol and opioid dependence in rats.
Whoa. And that's
So,
pretty early on then, right?
well,
They're not.
that's in 1999, beginning of the 21st century.
That's
That research is not new. That I mean, in the world of psychology, it's kind of new. It goes back to like the 60s, is where the world got more into trying to understand human behavior of things like addiction
yeah.
by studying addiction in mammals.
Yeah.
That comes from like more of the 60s, as well as the fact that that's when we were learning more about the linkage between the brain and behavior. There was always a lot of suppositions and a lot of inferences, but they really started to do crazy shit like cut into the brains and like take out pieces of brains of monkeys and see what
And
happened, or
they start to
going in.
understand what parts
Yeah.
actually control what.
Yeah, so the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and then they get more and more into using technology to help study behavior. So you have this apparatus that is linked to a computer that's measuring, let's say, responses on a lever and manipulating lights going on and manipulating food delivery. And I totally got into it. It was like, and I don't know, I guess it was the training I had at Eastern because the lineage of my training, sorry, this is all
No, this
psychology
is cool. I'm
lineage.
I'm really enjoying it.
The lineage is in the world of B.F. Skinner, and Skinner was a behaviorist, and Skinner was the
I've
one
heard
that,
Skinner's name a
yeah,
couple times.
he really helped to publish some of the nuances of how we can train animals to do things. I mean, Skinner was the one that trained pigeons to peck on a specific image to guide missiles to their targets. Now, it was never used in World War II, but they were trained to do it and it was demonstrated. And there are videos on YouTube you can look up and see pigeons trained to guide missiles.
Wow.
So, that again is also the use of technology. It's like something that's controlled on a little tiny
Yeah.
microprocessor to manipulate when to deliver food and what should the pigeon peck at. So I got into this lab that was studying opioids,
Yeah.
and our lab actually, for anybody that's interested, was one of the labs that contributed to the drug buprenorphine to being come on the market in the pharmaceutical industry. That's a big drug that's used as an alternative to methadone for people who
Whoa.
are dependent on opioids. So it was really interesting research, and so right at the tail end, right before I got my PhD, which also took a turn away from animals back to humans. I did my PhD in HIV research
Whoa.
in young kids, and it was basically the kind of stuff I'm good at, which is data. Just give me numbers
Yep.
and I'll interpret it. So I got this big, huge set of data from my colleagues at Children's Hospital in Michigan, Bonnie Stanton and Xiaoming Li, for this intervention called Focus on Kids, which is a intervention that teaches condom use, and
Wow.
it's really progressive. It's like
Good for you guys.
totally left wing
Yeah.
liberal. You guys are crazy. You're going to teach high school students to how to put on condoms. Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
you need to do.
probably.
You want to curb HIV and you want to cut down on unwanted pregnancies, and you're worried about you don't like abortions. Well, then you
Yeah.
need to
Hey,
teach kids.
teach
You got a fun
contraceptive
Planned
use.
Parent, right?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff I did for my final at the final end the last couple of years when I got my actual PhD. So when
Wow.
I got hired at Lawrence Tech to be a psychology professor,
Hmm.
I opened up a rat lab to continue to and as a way to bring
Of
students into
course.
this world, right? So I had renovated the basement
This
in
is
the building I was
awesome.
working in, and my dean gave me whatever I needed, thousands of dollars. It wasn't that
It's
much,
perfect.
and built like a little lab where I had some they call them colonies of like 2 or 3 dozen rats, and each rat is in their own cage. And students now could earn some money to come and feed them every day and make sure they're and I
Oh.
watered, and I studied stuff that I could do without having to buy like this total high tech, tens of thousands of dollars of equipment that I had when I did the opioid research
Okay.
in Wayne State that was linked to a computer.
Wow.
These boxes, when they're linked to computers, it's very expensive because you need a microprocessor that can communicate with the computer
Okay.
and can generate data.
Even in the modern world, very
Yeah.
expensive
Oh,
too.
yeah. I mean,
Okay.
like today, yeah. If you were to set up a lab now, I mean, you'd need at least
10 grand.
25 to 50
Whoa.
grand if you want to
Whoa.
do it right. Plus, there's a lot of restrictions in veterinarian and all sorts of stuff. It's
Okay.
it's definitely you can certainly get a lab in a very simple box and use it for teaching purposes. That was my objective. Is just
Yes.
very simple teaching purposes. Teach students about
Here's a
reinforcement and
concept. Go do
right.
what you want with it. Yeah.
Right. And how do organisms learn? Like, how do I learn how to play a better jerry lick? Well,
Yeah.
I'm
That's a perfect
continually getting
segue.
I'm getting feedback and I'm practicing over and over again. I'm like a rat being given food, and
Yeah.
if it doesn't sound right, or I'll record something and putting it up there, and some guys are like, "Yeah, it's okay. Not bad, but
No.
your tone is not quite right, and maybe you want to think about doing this." And that's how
Wow.
we learn,
Yeah. Truly. Okay,
So,
so old Matthew Cole, we have a professional trumpet player, or studying to be. We have interested in the tech side, then running a music studio in New York, doing like on the cutting edge of MIDI and SMPTE time code stuff, and then all of a sudden you're in the education field. It's 2015, and you are finding the Jerry thing. How
so
did that
what
go?
so what happened was when I started working here at Lawrence Tech, which was in 2007. So I've been here for,
Oh,
was it
wow.
2007? Yeah, 2007. Might have been 2005.
Okay.
I think it was 2005. So I'm coming up on 25
Oh
years.
my gosh. Congrats.
I know, which is like I had a kid. My daughter now goes here. Oh, she made
Oh
this for
my
me today. She's
gosh.
in a sorority and they're having all the.
Oh, that's super cute. I love that.
My daughter's like,
That's beautiful.
she's a sophomore actually studying psychology, and she's in the sorority Delta Phi Epsilon, and they're recruiting during Greek week, which is outside. It used to be
Okay.
inside, but because
Yeah.
of the pandemic. Anyways, yeah. So
That's awesome.
beginning in 2005, when I started working here, I would say literally within the first 2 years, I started playing music in my office with my guitar
Okay.
during office hours, waiting for
Hey
a
guys, this is
student.
who I
Just
am.
and a colleague would come down and they're like,
Uh,
"Wow, that's really cool. You playing the Grateful Dead?" I'm like, he goes, "I play guitar too." So then he would bring his guitar, and then by the time I opened up the Rat Studio, or the Rat
Rat
Lab, which was
Studio.
the
I
Rat
love it.
Lab, which was just a few years after they hired me full time. They hired me first part time. We had a band called the Rat Room Band. I think there's a couple of videos on YouTube if you search for either
The
Matt
Rat
Cole or if
Room.
you search the Rat Room Band. And we
That's
learned some
awesome.
cool, classic rock
Okay.
because that was, what my
No, not
friends
on the dead thing
played.
yet, really.
Well, no,
But
I would play.
still a little
I'm
bit.
playing the
You're
Dead stuff.
okay.
They maybe wanted me to learn Layla. We played
Okay,
Layla,
gotcha.
or a Jimi Hendrix blues tune,
Cool.
Red
Red
House, or
House.
something
Yep.
like, or lots of CSN or Pink
Cool.
Floyd,
Yep.
stuff that you could pull
Wish
off
you
on an
wish you were here.
acoustic. Yeah, I wish you were here. And then I'd be like Bertha, and I teach them the chord changes to Deal, or
Nice.
stuff that they could continue the pattern, and I could
Yeah.
solo over.
That's sweet. Yep.
And yeah, we did a bunch of concerts. And then I brought in some friends who played. Another friend of mine plays keyboard, and it was just really cool. And I haven't done that in a while. We're probably we people are wondering where's the Rat Room Band, because I think the last time we played was 3 years ago.
Oh, you got to
And
bring it back.
I know, and I remember it because my provost wasn't very happy. So in academia, the head of the institution is called the president,
Yep.
and then the next in line of the chain is called the provost, and
Provost.
then they're the deans.
Okay.
So the provost is like a real big deal.
Yeah.
And you kind of don't want to piss off the
Don't want to piss
provost.
off the provost at all.
but something was happening. Everybody was annoyed. All my colleagues. I don't know if they were trying to change the number of credits we had to teach or whatever. But we had this lunch, and it was our year. It was our annual lunch, and That's when the Rat Room band would play as our entertainment for like 15 or 20 seconds. I I made everybody play Satisfaction
Yeah,
with us.
Rolling
And
Stones.
I looked right at her and I was playing I Can't Get No Satisfaction. And I was kind of like, I'm a little bit pissed off at you,
But
but here's
like
a
it's
cool
here's a
song. And everybody
joking.
was sinking in, right?
Yeah.
She did not get the joke.
Oh
So,
no. Okay. So no more rat room for a little while.
yeah, but not because of her, just because
Yeah.
everybody got busy.
Yeah.
But I always play every Christmas. We just did a holiday party
Awesome.
last year before the pandemic, which is
Wow.
awesome. And yeah, I mean, some of my friends are very good musicians. My friend Andy Gerhardt, who's in the College of Engineering, has put out like three or four bluegrass records. He's an
Sweet.
awesome mandolin player, and he's a huge Old and In the Way fan.
As you would
So
be.
whenever we play, we always do Midnight Moonlight and
Cool.
Shady Grove and all sorts of cool, bluegrass stuff. I'm not very good bluegrass, but I'm enough that I'm a
That's a
musician, so
fun. Yeah.
I think part of the gig that I wanted to talk about relating to music is like how do you how do you play in a way that is meaningful to you and the audience,
Mm-hmm.
even if you don't have the chops
Yeah.
to like really be professional at it, kind of thing.
Whoa, that's a good
You know
question.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's great.
And that's maybe the phrase that doesn't have the chops that's up for interpretation.
Yes. But
But to me, it's do you have the enough of the chops that you're playing stuff that's meaningful that the audience likes and that is maximizing your strengths,
whoa. Oh, I
right?
man, that's making my brain turn in all sorts of ways.
Right?
What?
Because like when I hear myself play, I so 2015, I finally broke out from my basement that I had not broken out since, which is really strange to me. Like, why I didn't. My 1973 twin reverb and
Wow.
my Fender Strat. I hadn't played any electric prior to 2015. It was all acoustic in my office with my friends
Cool.
playing Grateful Dead tunes as the Rat Room band, just for fun.
Yeah.
And beginning in 2015, something is like, I don't know, I was probably looking on further and maybe or whatever, something came up that said, you need to check out Are You Kind?
Cool.
And I'm like, why? And they're like, well, you play Rat Room. There's a lot of musicians there, and there's
Okay.
cool talking, and maybe you should check it out. So I checked it out, and then I found like all these people are like totally interested in talking about Jerry
Yeah.
and Jerry, how to recreate the tone, and
Yeah.
so around that time, I also pulled up the twin from the basement, and this twin I actually bought when I was in New York
Cool.
in 1987. And unbeknownst to me, it was the tone stack that's very Garcia, right? That Fender tone
Yep.
stack. I bought it just
Just
because
twin
it
reverb.
sounded cool, and it had it was a beast to lug around. But I could do a lot of tones because when I was in New York, I forgot to mention I was in two or three bands.
Oh
Met
wow.
really, yeah, because I was still playing my trumpet and I would play keyboards. In this one band, I played keyboards with my left hand and trumpet with my right hand at the same time. I was in this band called The
I
Knitting.
hope you were getting paid double for that.
I was in this band called Third Rail,
Cool.
and we played a couple gigs. One was at the Knitting Factory, which is a famous joint in New York, and some other joints in New York. But in that band were some guys that turned out to be super famous. The lead singer, the drummer of that band was Eagle Eye Cherry, who Eagle Eye Cherry had that hit "Save Tonight."
I wish I could say I'm familiar. I'm so sorry. I need to listen to it.
Yeah, it's like a '90s hit,
Okay.
late
I was
'90s.
busy being born, so who
Yeah,
knows?
check that song out. Eagle Eye Cherry is the younger brother of Nana Cherry, who's a famous artist. Nana Cherry,
That sounds maybe
Buffalo
more familiar.
Soldier
Okay.
was her song,
Cool.
and both of them were the kids of Doc Cherry. God, I hope was that the famous trumpet player, famous jazz trumpet player. I should have made sure I'm saying this right. I think it's Doc
Okay.
Cherry,
We can
who's a
fact check.
famous jazz guy, like with like Freddie Hubbard
Yeah.
and all these trumpet players from the fusion era, and he had his own unique style. And again, it's like this fate. Like, how would I have
Playing with his
known
kids.
that this guy I'm playing with comes from this lineage with the famous jazz trumpeter?
That's pretty insane.
And then I was in that. Oh, and the lead singer of that band, his name was Mason. Fuck, what the hell was his name? He was in some movies that are big movies in the '90s.
That's.
One movie called Hackers. He with
I think I know of it.
Angelina Jolie.
Oh my god.
He was one of the characters in that.
I've seen some
Mason.
memes from that.
Jeez, I can't remember Mason's name. Anyways, I thought I wrote it down.
If I,
Anyways,
no, it's all
so
good.
Mason. Sorry,
No,
Mason. You'll never watch this in a million years, but if you do, I
if I had
apologize. I
Google
can't
more
remember your
ready, I
name.
would.
And then I was in this band called Thalia's Dog, where I just played guitar, and for that band I bought a Fender Strat and this twin, the '73 twin.
Cool. So
So
that's
long story
87
short,
where you buy the twin.
nah, that
Or
was
80.
more like
Oh, okay.
'93.
Oh, gotcha. Oh,
Last
you're in
couple
New
of my
York.
years
Yeah.
in New
Yeah.
York. Yeah, last couple of years in New York.
Yeah.
Packed it up,
It's in the
lugged it with
basement.
me around the country, Florida, back to Detroit,
Yep.
New York, Florida, Detroit, pulled it up. This Strat had been retrofitted, which I didn't know, with EMG active pickups. So I already had this instrument that was kind of set up, ready for like '80s Jerry tone
Yeah.
perfectly, right? Because '80s Jerry tone is with the buffer in there,
Mm-hmm.
active
Yep.
pickups, and really single coil.
Yep.
Even though you got the two humbuckers, they're split
Split a
coil.
lot. Yeah.
Yep, through a Fender tone stack,
Mm-hmm.
classic twin tone stack or any other Fender tone stack of that ilk.
Yep.
And and there it was. It was there. The tone was there, and I didn't even know it that I had it. And this is part of that conversation of like, how far do you want to go down the rabbit hole? It's like I had something already there. I didn't have to spend any more money. I already spent the
Like,
money
hey, you could
when
have
I was in
saw.
New
You
York,
could have ended it right there.
right there.
Well, I found the twin
But
reverb and Strat. We're
but
good.
I think what the reason why I kind of went down the rabbit hole was twofold. Number one, that twin was a bit too heavy for me as a
Okay.
50-year-old guy in 2015.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in pretty good shape, but
Twins are heavy though, no matter
they're
how good a
heavy.
shape you're in.
All right. And number two, when I started playing it, well, there's three things. Number two, when I started playing it, it stopped working because it had been sitting around for
Of
so long.
course.
Caps needed to be fixed.
Yep.
So I searched around, and this guy, I think he's famous in Detroit,
He's
called Detroit Amp Lab,
okay.
is a big amp guy, and he fixed it for me and changed the bias and upgraded stuff and told me to maybe I might want to think about getting some new speakers.
Okay. Did they come with JBLs or did you have Gen or
No, it
okay.
had
Whatever
it
they were
had
putting?
EVM 12Ls. It was
Oh.
really what they call a 73 a silver face music man. So like there was a time when Fender moved to Music Man to keep the
Yeah.
same specs. 73 kind of changed in the 70s. You have this pre CBS and post CBS. I don't
Yep.
really know. I
No, I
should
know
know more
what you're
about this
talking about though.
history,
Yeah, I
right?
have a
So Music
75.
Man, right? So Music Man is. Oh, you have a
A
75.
75 20. Yep, yep. Right
Yeah.
after that.
So I guess Music Man is a way to say you've got 73 specs in a not it's not 73. You have kind of Fender pedigree,
Yep.
Fender, you know, tight specifications, even though it's Music Man. So
Yeah, music.
technically,
Okay.
my 73 Silverface is
Music Man
is
manufactured.
yeah,
Wow.
and it had EVM 12Ls, which are even heavier. Those are like JBLs as far as weight
Jeez.
goes.
Okay.
Super super heavy, big magnets, handle a lot of power,
Yeah.
really clean. I never understood all of that because I was always trying to get grit and
Yeah.
distortion.
Well, you're not thinking
And
about speakers when you jump right into it. You're thinking about the
right,
knobs that you can touch. And
right,
yeah.
and I never understood much about it. I understand more now, but I still want to say I don't understand much about it at all.
Yeah. Well, it's an ever learning journey. You know, you don't stop.
Absolutely. And the neck wasn't quite right for me because when I was playing electric back in my day, I had a black Les Paul and I really liked that neck,
Yeah.
a little bit wider. It was a way to sort of balance out my thumb placement with sort of sliding over a little bit and still get my
Mm-hmm.
fingers there. My hands are not that big. And so I'm like, maybe it's time to think about some other guitars and I ended up getting Paul Reed's PRS,
Yeah.
uh, what's called the Custom 24 S2, the S2
Yep.
Custom
It's
24.
still made in Maryland, I think, or made in America, but they're it's
Um, no, I
it
think the only ones that are purely made in America are the artist
are
series,
are
the
the yeah
ones that are
the
more
core
money.
series. But the
Yeah.
S2 is still American made though. SE is
Oh, is it?
overseas. Yeah.
No, I think you're
S2
right. You're
might have
correct.
some kind I don't think
You're
it
right.
goes over the final finishing
You're right.
factory or
Yeah,
something.
SE is Korean, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, yep.
Yeah, which is still a really good
Great
guitar.
guitars. Sorry, continue. So you have
Anyways,
a PRS S2 with how many pickups? You got two
well, it was the
humbuckers or
stock, and
okay.
but I just love the neck, and I
Yeah.
went to Guitar Center. I've just tried every guitar, and again, knowing nothing, like what should I buy?
Yeah.
I wasn't interested in getting a guitar that another artist had because I just
Not a
didn't
Santana or
either
like a
know that much, or I
yeah.
just my motivation was more like I just want something that feels
What's
right.
good for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I learned in hindsight, John Kadlicek plays a
Yep.
PRS. Well, he did. It's still in his arsenal
Yeah.
before he went to I guess the Olympic. And
Yep.
so looking at Are You Kind, and I met Mike Wald.
Yes. Let's talk about him too at some point cuz
This is before the Mike Young scenario because I hadn't yet modded anything. I just had my PRS, I had my
okay.
Fender Twin, and I was playing, and I was curious what Mike thought of my tone.
Mhm.
And I'm the kind of guy, I think I'm like you. I'm fearless. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna call up somebody. How's it going? I'm Matt. I met you
Yep.
online about being a.
Yeah.
I mean that
I
fearlessness
only
is funny.
recently
Like
started doing that, but yeah, I feel it.
right. I mean you're like,
let's
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 talk.
talk.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yes. And let's play. I'm gonna play Grateful Dead the way I want to play it,
And
and
what
bada
made you
bing.
want to ask Mike because I was not
Well, I
on
didn't
Are You
ask Mike.
Kind,
No, I
so
didn't. Oh, Mike Wald. Yeah, it was
yeah.
just because he had posted some things, and everybody that asked a question, he was the guy that was giving the answer.
That's awesome. Who is
So
Waldo? Where
I
is
wrote
Waldo?
him, and then we started talking, and we're dear friends.
Great guy.
And this fearless, I wanted to say, it can also kind of make you take a look at yourself and take a step back. Like, because when Terrapin Flyer came to Detroit a couple years ago,
Yeah.
when I had heard about Josh Alkin
Yeah.
through Are You Kind, but I didn't know he was in Terrapin Flyer.
Okay.
And so I wrote Doug, I'm like, yeah, man, when you come to Detroit, let me know. I got Jerry gear. And then he wrote me back. He goes, Jerry gear, huh? And I'm like, yeah, I'm a guitar player. He goes, well, we have a guitar player. And I'm like, oh, shit. I thought I was like,
Like
going to be
giving a
like
favor or something. Yeah.
the guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was funny. And
That's
it,
funny.
that
That
fearlessness,
makes me
but
laugh.
you also reflect on yourself. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe
Yeah.
just take a
Yeah.
moment, do a little bit of research. Who's in
Yep.
Terrapin Flyer? Oh, my
Maybe
friend
come
Josh
back
from
to the
Are You
game
Kind?
next. Oh,
Josh already has killer tone. He doesn't need to do anything
that's
about tone.
funny.
Yeah,
Oh, that's too
but
good.
but so I had my Fender and I play stuff, and Mike's like, yeah, it's pretty good, but here's kind of a direction you maybe to get a little more
Okay.
Jerry,
Cool.
and so I'll just say as sort of like a disclaimer for those. I don't know that they're haters, but some people get really annoyed that some of us are really obsessed with Jerry tone.
Tone. Yeah.
And for me, it's a combination of really liking the tone,
Yep.
the technology, which interests me, and
Very
just the
fascinating.
challenge. It's like, how the
How do we get
hell,
there?
how's that beautiful tone created that has a little bit of grit
Yep.
and it's kind of
But it's
balanced all
clean.
throughout the
It
low. Yeah, through the
even
low and the high, it's balanced. It doesn't get thin as you go up. The
yeah.
bottom is nice and fat and right. And
And
so we know a lot now, but I didn't know a lot then at
Jesus, in
2015. So Mike
5 years,
starts.
we've figured like the community
Yeah.
has collectively figured so much out, but because of
Well,
people
yeah,
like
I mean, as
Waldo
far
and
as right, the technology, I think like going back to guitar players, I think some guys kind of figured it out because they just did what they saw was happening on stage. Like Jeff Madsen, when I look at these early videos of Jeff
Yeah.
in, God, I
He was
hate
playing
getting
in the
old.
90s and stuff, right? So,
Yeah, I, Zen Tricksters,
yep.
right? That
Okay.
was their
Yep.
band.
Yep.
Rob Baracco.
Cool.
Anyways, yeah, and a lot of guys on the Grateful
The
Dead
forum. Yeah.
Musicians Forum are familiar with him. I mean, he had great tone, and you look at what's behind him. It's a Fender,
Mm-hmm.
Fender guitar, Fender amp, and JBL speakers, and
Yeah.
it's like that's it, right?
That's
Now,
the
you
key.
want to get more, well, then you learn about the notion of the blaster, and then you learn a notion about the buffer and the
Mm-hmm.
oboe.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of that was new to me. And Mike kind of really schooled me. And plus, being a tech guy, I wanted to do all the stuff myself. So he
Yeah.
would show me schematics, and I
Cool.
learned how to solder. And I mean, I'd already know how to solder, but I learned how to like get in the amp and
So
change stuff out.
those
And
conversations, I'm guessing, with Mike, the ones that I've had, I ride that line of technical. Like, I can sort of, if I have somebody guiding me step by step, I can do instruction. I can follow instructions and stuff. But if I were to open an amp, I'm not going to know what's inside.
yeah,
How
me
easy
too.
was that
Exactly.
process for you to kind of translate the stuff you're hearing from these smart folks, and you're a smart person yourself? So, like, what did that process look like? Did you want to become a tech?
When back in 2015 and 2016, we just talked on the phone. And I'm like, hey, I want to do the work myself, but I'm really not sure what I should be doing. And
Mm-hmm.
then we talked about what caps to replace, or
Cool.
upgrade these,
Yep.
and then he gave me the schematic, and he didn't like guide me and say, here's how you take out a
Just
capacitor.
yeah,
No, I mean
exactly. You're gonna have to
that
figure
stuff
that
I
out.
learned. It's just like here's where it is on the schematic,
Yeah.
and then I learned a lot with the meter and how to measure stuff.
Yep.
But I don't really
Discharge your
know
filter caps, people.
anywhere. And I'm not an electrician. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
an electrician. I don't know anything about like. I kind of know why some stuff happens, like as far
Same.
as the different levels of
That makes sense.
filtering, the different levels of filtering when you have different capacitor levels.
Okay.
But I really don't know why it works that way deep down.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, one would be better than the other. I just know what is out there as far as this seems to be the most up to date information
Mm-hmm.
that's available to the community. And I'm really glad that Wald has his forum back up,
Yeah. So
Waldotronics.
waldotronics.com. He has the website, and then he
Yeah,
has the forum
yeah.
section. Very cool
Be-
info.
because that should be freely shared, and everybody knows if you're not a tech guy, you really don't know what you do. I mean, call up Mike and get a quote, and he'll do it. Or call up Jason Ferguson, get a
Yep.
quote. Or you need a guitar, call up Anthony Kasia and
Yep.
a
Or
bunch of other
Leo
guys.
Elliott, and
Or
yeah.
Leo.
There's
Leo renovated my Ibanez MC 200. So
really. Oh,
yeah.
that's cool.
So after I got the Paul Reed Smith, I did put the oboe in myself, which is really dumb because I didn't
You reverse
quite
the wires.
drill. No, I just
Okay.
didn't drill it out very well,
Oh
and there's
no.
just slight little nicks on it.
I did
I
the
ended up
same on one
selling
of
that
my
guitar,
guitars.
but there's no way I was going to route out. So when I looked around the web, and that's when I saw Mike Young and his PRS in the band Phanerium. Like
Cool.
that's my guitar, but with a middle pickup. I want a middle pickup.
Okay. Yeah.
So I used this guy out in East Lansing at this company called Elderly Music, which is a famous
Yeah.
music
I know
store for,
Elderly.
yeah.
Yeah. I have
He
one
has
of their
since been
stickers.
terminated due to the downturn, which really sucks because he
Mm,
was there for like 20 years.
that's
And
a bummer.
he did the routing for me. And
Damn.
those guys were all amazed because he's like, yeah, this guy came in with a guitar and is giving me schematics on what to do. And
Sheer
he's telling me
fun.
exactly what I want to do to
I bet
turn
he
it into
never gets that.
Jerry Garcia Tiger guitar, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is
That's
so cool!" So he
awesome.
did the work, and then they all
Cool.
started playing it. None of them really knew what an oboe was,
Yeah.
and so that was really cool
That's
that all these
awesome.
like traditional, Martin or
Hmm.
banjos or violins or hardcore,
You
acoustic
call them
instruments.
purists most of the
Yeah,
time. Yeah. That they were interested in something like that. That's awesome.
totally. And like I guess we could say maybe being completely obsessive, being kind of a kind of a dummy. I said, well, maybe there's more. Like I was done. I had this killer PRS, and
Yeah.
at that point, I had already joined Dedicated, which
Cool.
was a band from
And
Detroit.
that's the band I first knew you as being a part of, I believe. That's when I started
Right.
to see your name around.
Yeah, Dedicated was no Thanksgiving 2016.
Cool.
So quickly thereafter, and you'd think like, all right, I got this guitar. I really worked my ass off to study jerry licks. I have my own unique style of improv. I'm already kind of like total type A personality, going to lead the
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
I was the oldest guy in the band, these young
Perfect.
guys, young guns, which I love, dear friends and
That's awesome.
dedicated. Put an ad in Craigslist. Oh, I had made these loop videos of like Loser and West LA Fadeaway,
Okay.
where I like played the keyboard
Cool.
and the bass,
Yeah.
and then I played live over it and sang over it. Those are my early videos
That's awesome. Are those
on
still on your
YouTube.
Matthew Cole
Yeah,
YouTube channel? Or-
yeah, those on my Matthew Cole
Okay.
YouTube channel, and I think one of them I put that on whatever year. What do they have that dead covers list? The dead covers list
Mm,
on dead.net. Every year they have the dead covers.
okay. I
I think it's called Dead Covers List.
That's
Dead
sweet.
Covers.
I'm not actually
Yeah.
familiar, but I had to check it out.
Yeah, there's through dead.net they started asking people to submit YouTube videos of covering the Grateful
So
Dead. Maybe
cool.
it's the Dead Covers Project,
Okay.
excuse
Oh
me.
yeah, 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 yeah. So
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
of course.
The
Yes.
Dead Covers Project. All right. So my first one up there was Loser, and I don't I was using I still have it. I love it. The RC300. It's a real
It's a
good.
Boss Looper classic.
Yeah. Yep, that's what Keller uses, Keller Williams,
That's
and
awesome.
and but I don't have a drum set, and so I just had these simple little, funky drum patterns that are built into it.
Yep.
So people are like, great tone, but the drummer's got to get better.
You're
What's
like,
up with the
well,
drummer?
it's a
It's a drum
computer, but
machine. Sorry, yeah. And your keyboard loops, they don't go anywhere. They're just the same patterns. I'm like, they're a
they're
loop.
loops.
Right.
Hey, that's awesome though. At least
So
you got
that's how,
the backing
yeah,
for it.
absolutely. And I got feedback. I think Josh gave me some feedback. This guy
Awesome.
in Oregon, Justin John, and the
Yeah,
band, the Garcia Project, or not the Garcia Project,
that's Mick Bondi, right?
Garcia's birthday band.
Cool.
The Garcia birthday band. I love him. He's such a great guitar player,
That's
Justin.
awesome.
So they'll gave me some feedback. That's really cool. How are you getting that tone? And when also by this point, I wanted to be able to play at home at night. My daughter was still at home in high school, and my wife can only take so much of
Yeah,
this.
it's
So I
fair.
built an isolation cabinet so I could have
Ah,
a speaker like a speaker it's like a box in a box.
that's super
It's
cool.
like a window, that
You've got to be
the
one of the few people on the forum with an ISO cab. I bet.
so
I
I could
bet.
play at like midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 in the morning
Sick.
it's
The
cranking. It
tone.
is I am moving air,
Yeah. What's
but
it sound
nobody
like
can hear
outside the
it.
box? Nothing.
Nothing. It just sounds like
That's so cool.
it's amazing. It's really cool.
What
My design. I think.
can you
I
tell us
think
about the
I've.
design of that for those who are interested in building their own?
It's basically like maybe it's like a bench. It's a big bench that opens
What are
up
we looking at dimension wise? Maybe.
like 6 feet long
Okay.
by like 4 feet wide,
Okay. So it's
and
big.
that's lined with acoustic foam
How
or acoustic
thick?
tile, thick like two
Okay.
inches, the big thick stuff.
Okay.
And then there's another box in that where you put your speaker
Cool.
and your microphone. So it's like a box in a
Is it
box.
a hard? It's not a hard trucker style like
Not at
cabinet
all.
in there.
No.
It's just a
I
speaker
mean,
mounted.
you can use really good high quality, but it doesn't matter because there's no open space
Yeah.
anyways, and it's just purely the sound of the speaker coming
And
out.
how much room in there with us? You say it's about 4 by 6. So if you have the 6 feet long, I'm imagining the speaker is firing down the lengthwise
Well, you could
direction. Or
so then there's the next box that let's say it's like, 4 feet long by like 3 feet. So it's
okay,
another
okay,
whole nother box
yeah,
that you put this speaker in kind of like far enough away from the end that the magnet is not touching the back end, but it really doesn't matter
okay,
because it's not like open back anyways.
yeah,
And then for me, it was kind of like, well, I want to put it where I would have put it in the recording studio, which is I put it as close as possible for the tone that I was looking for at the time when I
cool,
was recording, which is kind of like the way Jerry did anyways. Dan Healy, I mean, they mic'd him kind of really
real
close.
close,
It's not
cool,
like back,
yep,
right?
yep,
And now, of course, tones are different the further back away the microphone is, and you
For
get the
sure.
tone of the room. But it doesn't matter in this box. There's like no
It's a
tone of the
box.
room,
So wait, when you
right?
say you're dropping a speaker in here, I'm trying to picture, is this like you have a baffle in there that you can with clamps that you can mount to, or are you literally dropping your cab and
Yeah, no,
everything?
right. There's like an opening where you can screw in the speaker. So I would
Awesome.
change out speakers
So
and do
you just
different
have
tone tests and
A
stuff.
K or an
Yeah.
E or whatever you want in there.
Well, it started with the original EVM, and
EVs.
that's when Mike said, not bad. And of course, EVM is a killer speaker. That
Mm-hmm.
12L is fantastic. But he's like, maybe try JBL. So I tried a JBL and put it in the box. And he's
Cool.
like, oh my God, how the hell are you getting that sound? Well, I'm like, unbeknownst to me, it was because I was really moving air and I was driving it.
Sick. And nobody else
And
can
that,
do that because we're all in our office
yeah,
spaces and it hurts.
right. So I've always thought, I, maybe it'd be cool to get something like that on stage
Mm-hmm.
in like a small club, but it's just so bulky and it's
Why are you
cumbersome
gonna
and it's
lug that
super
around?
heavy.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
So the challenge has always been how do you get the tone that's not ear blistering,
I
and not going to break your back.
I'd
So
say
that's
you're
always,
pretty. I don't know if famous is the right word, but at least in my mind, you're famous for the Moss Valve power
yeah.
amplifier. You're one of the few who like has that amazing Jerry tone, but you're not using a Macintosh consistently, especially live. It seems like.
Well, that's
Or,
where that's not entirely correct.
oh no, okay,
No,
okay,
no. The guy that uses Mosfev all the time is Stacy Webster out of the Midwest in this band called Winterland.
okay,
He uses Moss Valve all the time.
all
He
the
gets a
time,
really good
okay.
tone. Yeah,
But you
I
have
don't
one in
use it
your
all the
rig though,
time.
right?
I did do, well. I did tone tests, and I played a couple gigs with Moss Valve,
Okay, gotcha.
and I've done a couple of tone tests where I've used it as the power amp to compare. But my pleasure,
Ooh,
and
Macintosh.
now I still try to bring the Macintosh whenever possible.
Very cool. Okay, which Mac do you play through? You have a 2300.
MC 2100.
100. Beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. No, 2300. Like,
I didn't know. I didn't know.
I mean,
I would-
that's good for home use, and I don't. My friend Brian, my friend Brian Aveen, who's in this band in Detroit called Dead Again,
Great.
he's a
Oh man,
really good
that's
guitar
awesome.
player. When I first met him, he didn't have an active guitar. I helped him get an active guitar and helped him put him in his buffer.
Yeah.
It's part of our the way we meet, way I am about meeting people and talking to them, and I was totally interested in helping him improve his tone. But he had on stage this like 2300 that he used to lug around from gig to gig. I'm like, you're insane. He ended up trading that to Mike Wald, who did some work
Wow.
for him in the trade
Oh, that's
on
cool.
his second twin. Because Brian uses his main twin and then he has like a backup in case it
Okay.
goes out, kind of like what
Nice.
Jerry did.
Yeah.
But getting back to the guitars, so I got this PRS renovated and started doing tone tests with it and was in dedicated and everything was great. I mean,
It's
I didn't
awesome.
need to do anything else.
Just
And
hanging
and
out.
again, I'm like, why not? I saw this MC 200 on eBay and bought it for like $600 and sent
Cool.
it to Leo, who I had met and
Awesome.
through Are You Kind, and Leo did the whole Leo thing, and
Awesome.
that ended up being my main acts for a couple of dedicated gigs. And then I saw Kasha Anthony started posting pics of a wolf that he made,
That was his
and
first
then
one, I think, right? It was.
right, and then I saw his design for something unique that wasn't wolf, it wasn't tiger,
Hmm.
it wasn't alembic, and I'm like, I like
That's
that, I
me.
want that, and I want, and I was ready to like invest
Yeah.
in something that was
A
very much
lifelong kind of
Jerry
instrument.
an Irwin manufacturing pedigree as far as the uh, hippie
Yep.
sandwich
Yeah.
and
Getting all the specs.
right, but it wasn't a total Tiger clone, and
Yep.
it's not a total
Well,
Wolf
I love
Wolf
that
clone.
Anthony's guitars are his,
And I was kind of like,
his
I guess,
designs.
kind of like one of the first guys that maybe took a risk with him as
Yeah.
far as
I was going to
I'm
ask, were
ready
you
to
one of
go.
his first
I'll pull
customers?
the bullet. I'm pulling the bullet, and like a dummy, because I'm so mad at myself. I sold my PRS and I sold my MC 200 to get the cash together.
Yeah.
And the guys that I sold it to are annoyed with me because I write them every year. You let me know when you're ready to sell that guitar back to me.
They're
I
like,
will I
no,
will
we're
take
not
it
going
in
to
a
sell
heartbeat.
it.
That's
That's
why,
great.
I keep going back from the gear side on this rabbit hole. It's like
Yeah.
be sure you know what you're in for when you enter the rabbit hole. And And if you're a playing
Starts
musician, it's
tumbling.
really not necessary because if you're a musician playing for money every night and that's your gig and you're happy with what you got,
Yeah,
like God bless you. But
that's great.
like I'm not a play. I don't play music as a profession. I play because I'm a musician and I have to play it
Yeah, exactly.
and I have to figure out how to play it to the best of my ability, which is I'm not going to get excellent, but I'm not going to get perfect,
Yeah,
but there will be times when I'm going to be excellent.
that's great. Yeah,
Right? That's my
exactly.
goal.
That's awesome.
And I listened to those old tapes of Dedicated, which old now, right? Which
Yeah.
is like 3 years, and it's like there's some stuff there, and my improv is very interesting, but it's really sloppy. Lots of wrong notes,
Okay.
too loud at times. Very,
Yeah.
still too
That's one
staccato,
that
like a
makes me feel
trumpeter.
extra weird when I'm like, "Ooh, I was a little hammering my bandmates there." Like, oops.
My friend Brian from Dead Again, we were talking about it. He goes, "I have one rule." I go, "What's that?" He goes, "I never listen to what I played before." He goes, "I only play a gig."
Yeah.
And he's a real guitar, a very good
Man,
guitar
his
player.
voice is amazing too.
Oh
If
God,
he,
right?
yeah, it's like
There,
sounds like
there was.
Jerry almost to a
I was
T.
helping him one summer. It was 2 summers ago at this event we
He's a
we
lefty,
used to
right?
do.
Am I
No,
think?
no,
No, okay,
no.
never mind.
Vic DeRobertis is the
Sorry.
lefty
Okay, no, but I,
from playing. What's their band? Playing Dead or playing?
yeah, I think it's playing dead. I don't want to get
Yeah,
it wrong, but I think that's it.
yeah. So maybe you're thinking about Vic. Vic
Okay,
also
there.
has a real good voice. It's very
Okay,
Jerry-esque. But
I've
Brian,
seen
when you
videos of
hear
Brian though. Yeah,
listen to Dead Again and close your eyes, be like,
yeah.
this is
No,
like
it's good.
Jerry
No,
singing.
no,
Like,
it's. I'm thinking of Brian then.
yeah.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say about that is funny is one summer I was helping Brian. I brought some new tubes to him for him and helped him set up at this event that we used to do every summer called OABI, OABI, which is where you do these paddle boards. You stand up and you paddle around this really cool island we have in Detroit
Okay.
called Belle Isle.
Oh, cool.
But they put on a big show and there's like several hundred people, 400, 500, 600 people.
Nice.
And one year, Keller Williams, well, 2 years ago, was it? 2 or 3 years ago, Keller Williams was the headliner. Dead Again was the supporting act.
Yep.
And I was backstage because all I was there for was just to help Brian set up his gear. And Keller and Dead Again was playing I Know You're Rider. And Keller's like, oh my God, that guy sounds like Jerry. I go, it's so strange,
That's
isn't it?
awesome.
Then Keller went out and played Scarlet with them, which was very cool on acoustic guitar.
Wow.
Played sang this awesome harmony note with the Scarlet melody that was just
That you can
fantastic.
only do in bluegrass, right?
Kind of, yeah, but it worked so well.
That's so fun.
So long, so that's where we're at. So in April 23rd, 2019, last year before, a year before our
Pandemic. Whole
pandemic,
world fell apart.
I basically played my last gig with Dedicated, and that was
Okay.
a gig with Dedicated and David Gans. And
Wow.
again, the fearless nature of me is like, and I want to say a few things about David Gans.
Yeah.
David, what's really cool about David as a musician is he's one of these guys like I was trying to allude to before. He's a musician. He interprets the music. He plays the passion in the music. He's not a shredder.
Yeah.
He's not like gonna blow you away on some solo because it's
He's
like
not going.
so intricate.
Yeah.
But it's a meaningful solo. It's got
He
notes
said what he
that
wanted to say. Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
I love him. He's one of my heroes in all this. And as
Very
you
cool.
know, he's done so much with the Grateful Dead Hour
Yep.
and his books. He's a journalist and a musician. And I guess I would call
Been doing it
myself like an,
forever
an
too.
academic and a musician, but when I play music, I don't make a whole lot of money at it.
Yeah.
He's predominantly, an academic, journalist, musician, side by side, got to make a living at it.
Yeah. Exactly.
And he plays a lot of gigs, and I saw that, and I saw him when I just was looking at the Grateful Dead tribute band list of gigs, and however on Facebook all the events. I'm like with David Gans, with David Gans, with David Gans. I'm like, why not? And
Yeah.
and Terrapin Flyer, Doug Hagman is another guy that gave me sort of the motivational strength to do that. Terrapin Flyer with Melvin Seals, Terrapin
Yeah.
Flyer with Scott
Exactly.
Guberman, like all
Yep.
these guys
Tom
that
Constant. Or Constantin.
are
Sorry.
getting extra right, getting
Yeah.
being brought in as another musician, and you figure out the rates and
Yep.
whatnot, and if they agree to do it, they join you. And so
It's awesome.
I wrote David, do you want to come to? Does it make sense for you to sit in
To
or do a
Detroit
gig with
show.
us in
Yeah.
Detroit? And he's like, yeah, let's figure it out. So
Cool.
had a chance to meet him and play a gig with him last year, and
So
then
fun.
I got sick. My vision got all screwed up, and I had to basically spend all of last summer until basically this past Thanksgiving just recuperating, teaching online,
Yeah.
and it was a kind of a bummer. But it was probably a godsend in the sense that a simple twist of fate that dedicated was a great band for me to be part of as my first foray into playing in a tribute band
Yes.
because we were all learning how to play the music together
Yeah.
and we did a lot of rehearsing
Nice.
and we played a lot of gigs, but that was too many gigs for me as an academic.
Wow.
Right? I
Wow.
had my day job and I
Very
just
honest though.
yeah, we drove, we did stuff in Columbus and Cincinnati
That's a
and Grand Rapids,
that's
which is like 3 hours outside of Detroit. So
which is
3 hours
6
there, play a
hours.
gig, 3 hours back,
Yep.
set up and these
Turn.
guys are younger and they want to play more gigs. And so I'm like, I don't want to hold you back from playing more gigs.
Yeah.
And also I can't play with you for a long time. So they
Wow.
brought in a real good guitar player out of the Detroit area, Brian Coogan, who's
Cool.
an
I know
awesome. He
his
was in this
name.
band. Yeah, he was in this band Pure Flavor, and he's a really good guitar player.
That's awesome.
He's another one of these guys that wants to play the Dead the way he wants to play it. His
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
goal is not completely lick copying, and
Yeah.
that's not really my goal
I
either.
don't think
My
it's that many folks' goal, even if we are all little like Jerry clones or whatever people like to use the term. I
yeah,
think we're on this journey for very personal, like I gotta find it. I just gotta find it kind of
right. Well,
obsessive mentality.
I like to copy the licks when I'm practicing, but then when I play, I always forget them anyways. Like
Yeah,
I can
exactly.
when
Yeah,
I'm
what good is
practicing, I've got the music.
yeah,
I'm not practicing them to memorize them. When I play, little nuances will come in, but I still fall back on the stuff that works for me, my
yeah,
strengths.
yeah.
Bends, I do a lot of
You have to
bends,
have your
and
vocabulary.
and one of the things that I do try to do is be era appropriate to certain Jerry note selections. Like
Yeah,
if I'm playing St. Stephen, I'm gonna love to put in more pentatonic stuff.
because that's where
But
he was at as a musician
right.
when they were doing
Or
that
West
stuff.
LA, right?
Yeah.
West LA, very blues
Yep.
oriented. But if I'm playing like Eyes of the World, like
You're
or
not
or
gonna.
even like, you know, China Rider, I wouldn't I unless I'm making a mistake, I'm really not thinking in a pentatonic mindset. It's
Yeah.
much more chromatic.
Yep.
So, we've read these criticisms of like John Mayer, who uses his
Pentatonic
strength,
scales only. Yeah.
but that's his strength,
He's
and
fucking
that's what
awesome
he
at it.
brings,
Why wouldn't
right?
you?
So I love it. It's not what I would choose to do,
Yes, exactly.
but I love it, and that's
And
why I'm.
in his
Yeah,
defense, I think as you've watched him play with Dead and Company over however many years, it's been 5 years now, roughly 4 years, something like that. He's like, he's fallen in that path. He gets it more, and he's throwing more Jerry where it's appropriate to throw Jerry. But it's still you listen and like that's John Mayer, and I think he does a great job.
absolutely.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
like an Althea, for example. Like
yeah,
I learned to play Althea because I was studying Jerry, so I learned the finger picking.
yep,
And that's my intro. I want to play it like Jerry does, and maybe that's the one piece that helps to set me apart from some other people that are interpreting Jerry as I'm trying to do more of the
finger,
finger
yeah,
for some of the tunes.
exactly,
But still, when I solo, like I start with a mindset of Jerry, but then it goes off on what does Matt want to
yeah.
play for the solo,
Because you're you,
right?
you can't help but
Right.
yeah,
Right. Like if I hear Josh Olkin play Althea, he's not doing the finger picking, but he's found a way to make it his
Josh does
strengths,
whatever he feels like would be
right?
appropriate in that era. Yeah.
And I think we all do regardless because we're all human and unless you have the chart in front of you that's like what exactly did Jerry play, right? It's always going to be you.
Yeah.
So I think these
Yeah, Mark
arguments from
Muller's
some
the
of the
only
people,
person that does not fall into any of this. Mark, shout out Mark, dead on live. You're a
right?
wizard, and
Yeah,
I truly
and that
don't understand how
transcription,
you do
right?
that.
Right?
I
Yeah,
really
that's
want to
pretty
get
cool.
him on for an episode. I don't know if he watches this, but that would be
He's
like,
like the Steve Vai of Zappa,
yeah,
where Steve
right?
like
Yeah.
totally wrote down everything that, and then played it for him exactly the way Frank did. And Frank's like, "Oh shit, join my band."
I'm just wondering, like, how good do you have to be at transcribing to like make that efficient? To learn a
I
whole
have
that
no idea.
that's
I have no
that's the
idea how
big
these
question
guys
in
do
my
it.
mind.
And I don't have the time to learn how to transcribe. The only thing I'll be honest, the only thing I've ever transcribed in my entire life is the victim of the crime solo.
Oh, very cool. What made you want to do that one?
Because the new band I'm in, Raising the Dead,
Yeah.
my guitar player Dave Martin, he has the Bobby parts down, and
You're
he's
like,
like, "We're
I
playing
have
Victim of
to.
the Crime," and I'm like, "I've never learned it." So I took what show was it? It was one of the last shows, 1990 summer
Wow.
tour, right before Brent died. I think it might have been the last time they played Victim of the Crime,
They
and
didn't play
I
it that much, right?
right now, but I just love Jerry's parts are very clean. You can hear it.
Cool.
I love how the song kind of evolved over from the studio record to playing it live, kind of very practical,
Yeah.
pragmatic. So I threw that into Adobe Audition, slowed it way down, but the pitches are there,
Yep.
looped it so I could hear it over and over again and
Sick.
started writing down the notes.
Cool. So
I
you
can
were
send you that
you're transcribing it out by hand, writing it out.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. And since it's for me it's about where do I need to put my hands
Yeah.
as opposed to the notes, which my keyboard player Max gets mad at me. He's like, "Well, if you were going to transcribe it, you should have written it in notes." I'm like, "The notes are not going to really help me playing live
That's
because
what. Oh, you're putting it out
I
in
need to,
tabs. Yeah.
yeah, I
Gotcha.
need to really quickly do the tabs."
Yeah.
So I have a tab that I can send you if you want.
That's so cool. I'd love to see it. That's
It
neat.
has no, it has like no,
Like
there's no
whatever the
rhythm
symbols.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just what are the
Well, if
notes,
you
and
know the
then if you
solo,
know the
then you.
song, you can hear the notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty
So
awesome.
that's the only thing. So I'm always amazed. Like Craig Acree, the guy Weeping Willow,
Oh
like
my God, he's
his
awesome.
transcriptions are so intense. You got
It's
the
got to take him
notes,
months.
you got the music, you got the tab, you've got the
All synced up with
chords.
words too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's awesome. I love.
There are
You know,
some
I've never met
talented
him, but
people out here in this community. Like,
yeah.
it's including your like. It's just everybody that I've wanted to talk to. Is basically, it's somebody that's good at something. You know,
Well,
something that,
I think I'm striving for continuous improvement. I
as we
mean,
all are, hopefully.
like a teacher, like I'm, and the piece for me, like people are like, well, why? Like my wife doesn't understand it. Why can you sit in front of the TV with the sound off and play guitar for like 4 hours straight? I'm like, because that's what I used to do as a trumpeter. I would
Gives me
just sit
joy.
there with the sound off on my TV and play scales and play licks
Yeah.
and learn and then learn how to play trumpet. And for me, the guitar has been just a complete interesting new language from the picking to the left hand
Mm-hmm.
to keeping tempo
Yeah.
and learning how to play. My big thing is I've always sang as an acoustic player with my eyes closed just because I get into it.
Yeah.
I get lost on the guitar, so I'm learning like how to not do that. But
That's
for
an
me,
interesting thing to think
I
about.
think yeah, I think the biggest thing for me has been scales. Like
Cool.
I learned about 4 years ago from Guitar Player magazine when I
Hmm.
was learning about modes, an alternative approach. Maybe it's the normal approach. I don't know. I've never taken a very serious guitar lesson, but an alternative to approach to the modes, which is start on one note and play all the modes, all seven of them, starting on the same note,
Okay.
right?
That's interesting. Yeah, that's not how
Yeah.
I traditionally
So
have thought
that's
about it. Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
that's how I've learned to play. So that has helped me in my vocabulary because I learn when I play a solo, I'll mix it up all the time, all the different modes.
That's pretty interesting. I'm just trying to, that is like clicking in my head right now because I'm thinking about your background and
Yeah.
versus like my background. To me, when I that big like I don't know if it's unraveling, but unfolding of the steps, like, oh, I can do this, was here's a G major scale. All right, now
Right.
here's an A Dorian mode, and
Right.
here's your Phrygian, and we don't have to worry about Lydian, and we don't have to worry about Locrian because those are the same hand positions on a guitar as Phrygian and your major Ionian. So I
Right.
heard it out that way, and I was like, cool. Now I can play my major scale anywhere, and I feel confident. But to be able to look at it and understand, oh well, this one Mixolydian has a flat 7, and that's the only difference. That's pretty cool. Like,
That's it. Yeah, you just change one note.
Yeah.
start on.
What's the order? Do you know the order of the scales of how many notes change? I forget.
Yeah, let me get it.
Yeah.
It'll just take a
I should
second.
know
Hold
this, but
on.
I can't think of it right now. We
Yeah,
start in Ionian. We
it'll
hit
take a second.
mixo. Is it just a circle of
Is
fifths?
it under music? No, it's not a
Not okay.
circle of fifths. Um, where the hell is it?
F
Um,
two.
no, that's not it.
Yeah, I'm real. Oh no, I need. I almost want a guitar, but
Oh, start.
okay,
It starts with Ionian,
okay. No flats or
then
yeah.
right, then Dorian, so
Okay,
the major,
okay.
right?
Yep.
Then. Oh wait,
Well, I
wait,
know
wait.
it would
No,
be
no, no,
Ionian,
that's not
Dorian,
correct. That would be
Phrygian. Yeah, yeah.
right. That would be the traditional way,
But
right?
yeah, exactly. I'm thinking about
Okay.
how many notes are flatted
All right. Yeah,
on
yeah.
a
Hold on,
chain.
hold on. Oh shoot.
And we can edit all this.
Damn ad
Time
blocker.
out. It's
Okay,
all good.
so when you right the traditional way, Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian,
Yep.
right?
Perfect.
Okay, now the one note changing perspective, you start on Lydian.
Okay. Cool.
So then when you go down one note, it makes it Ionian.
Okay.
Then it's Mixolydian when you flat one note.
Okay.
Then you change one more note, and now you're Dorian,
Okay.
right? So
Cool.
the first three you start with your second finger,
Yep.
and then once you go to Dorian, now you start with your first finger and you do Dorian, Aeolian, Phrygian, Locrian.
Dorian, Aeolian, Phrygian, Locrian. Locrian. Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's
And
cool.
each mode is just a one note
Yep.
change.
That's what helped it click for you then.
That helped it click for me, and it helped me just learn to, let's say, solo an A, but not be afraid to like try all different things
Yeah.
from these modes I've learned,
Yeah.
but play stuff that I hear in my head, or figure out how to play stuff I hear in my head on the guitar. So that's been my main thing. Is I always start with that. I do a bunch of reps of that,
Cool.
and I also do them with different rhythms, like quarter notes, and then eighth
Cool.
notes, and then like triplets, and
That's a totally different. When you switch to triplet stuff or just anything in like a 6/8
yeah, da
signature, it's
da
a
da da
totally
da da
different
da
picking
da
string.
da.
Da 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 da
Yeah,
da 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 da. Because your hand is
yeah,
going 1, 2, 3,
yeah.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So
That's
you're
great practice to get that whole other one, get the whole, triplet feel.
yep.
Yeah,
That's yep. I could sit there. That's one of those things I can do for hours
and I think
with the
that's why
TV
when we
off.
started the conversation, I said I switched my picking style. That's another reason why I went back to this, because I'm
Okay.
much more fluid and I can get the swing going. That's what I love about, like, I
Yeah.
always have a few things I try to practice every time I practice. I always try to play my modes,
Hmm.
and I always try to practice shakedown,
Cool.
because I don't know any other guitarist that can really pull off the killer Jerry style on shakedown.
It's
Like
tough. It's a
that
real tough
shakedown,
song. Like an
like 85,
underestimated
that
tough.
Merriweather 85 is, the swing is so intense with his playing, right?
Hmm.
Zabada dabada. I mean, just that lick right there. Zabada
Da ba da
dabada
ba.
ba.
Yep.
Right there, it takes a lot of work to do that.
Yeah.
You're either like da 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 da,
Well, because
or
you
you're
have to
like
be
da
thinking.
da 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 da. But
You're thinking
Jerry's a
in a oney and a
combination.
twoey and a oney and a twoey and a oney and a two. That has to be rolling in your head, or else that lick is not going to come out. Ba da da ba
And
da da
but it
ba.
right, yeah. It's a combination, I think, for Jerry, of learning on the banjo, getting the banjo, zagadook and gagadook and gagadook dagadook and gagadaga da, right? It's already kind of
Yep.
fluid.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then you bring it into the guitar and maybe the influence of Ornette or the other jazz guys, and it's not totally like zabadoo,
Yeah.
dabadoo, but
Yeah.
it's like halfway in between.
Sub it up, bob it
So
up,
I like to
boom.
practice on that so that it feels natural to me.
That's cool.
If it feels natural in my brain, it will sound natural. And so I always like to practice that one. Of course, the Slipknot
I was
riff,
gonna say
I
that's
like to
another
practice
one
that.
like that.
And then I just do a bunch of finger stuff. Crazy Fingers, I love playing that. The
Yeah.
positions are really cool. And
Beautiful
that's
tune.
all finger picking all the way until the solo. And yeah, our band just started that, so I've been having a
I
blast.
don't think I
And
ever
then
consciously thought if that was all finger picking, but it
it
makes a lot of
is.
sense
The
to me.
whole
Yeah.
thing is finger until the solo.
Okay, very
Now,
cool.
one tune that I want, one version I want to recommend for you,
Hmm.
which is in my mind, like for what I like, the tone I'm searching for.
Yeah.
Mike and I have had this conversation for a long time. All the years of tone are fantastic, right? Like,
Beautiful. Yeah.
how can you not love er, early 70s, late 60s, humbucker,
Slide tube amp. Yep.
cranking, right? Right? How can you not love, 87,
That's my
88,
favorite. 89 personally, but yeah.
right? And some guys really even dig the later, in ear,
Josh had some nice
totally
stuff
no
to say about
speakers.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they pulled it off that cool stream that they
Oh, I
did,
love
right?
that. That was amazing.
But to me, it's 1982, July 29th, Red Rocks, which I believe was the rain night.
Wow.
And Jerry plays Crazy Fingers.
Okay.
And I just want you to listen to it when you get a chance.
Red
Listen
Rocks
to that
82.
solo.
Okay.
Listen to the solo. It is dripping with reverb. It is clear as a bell. The
Cool.
note selections are absolutely quintessential Jerry. So that's what I strive for, to get the nice balance of reverb when I play. I I tend to always roll it back because to my ears there's too much reverb, but on the
Yeah.
recording there's not
That
enough.
reverb won't cut. Yeah.
So I've got to give it just a little bit more because I want that tank, and that's why I don't use the SMS
You
CTP.
don't
I
want
think
the
it's
digital reverb.
I can't, and even Mike created a
I
nice,
like
cool
his
little
mod
reverb
for it.
module,
Yeah.
right?
I like it's a little bit of a
I
slap.
just can't play with it. I
You're
don't know
not a
what it
fan,
is.
huh?
I can't tune my guitar. Every time I hear it, I hear the algorithm.
Interesting. I wonder if that
I hear the
stems from
pattern.
your background in
It could be
studio
trumpet,
tech.
right? Trumpet is buzzing, and you're tuning yourself by not hearing cycles. It's got to be
Okay.
clear,
Yeah.
and you're tuning to like an oboist, which sets the tone, and
Yeah.
all the brass has to get together. And when you play in tune, your lips are really adjusting the tuning, and it's so there's no overtones. Everything is together.
Okay.
When I play with the digital reverb,
Yeah.
I start hearing the pattern,
That's so interesting. And you're talking about the
right?
mod pattern. There's a slight modulation to
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
creates, yeah, that's what it is. It's an algorithm, right? And even if it's designed to try to be to
nat-
differ, right? Like a fluctuating
you're gonna
algorithm.
hear a cycle. You're
I
gonna
hear
hear
it. I
those
hear the
nodes and
repeating. Yeah,
waves and yeah.
I just can't do it.
That's pretty interesting. Well, you're one of that's another thing that I know you for is at least like you see all your Waldo stuff and it's all Maestro or Maestro. Sorry, I've been saying that wrong.
Yeah.
For Maestro, yeah, Maestro.
Right.
It's all the Maestro modded stuff, and it's all twins. It's like you
Yeah.
have the big boxes and the real spring reverb and stuff. So
Yeah.
some people seem to
Yes.
be particular about that. I don't know why it doesn't bother me, but I've always loved the digital. I think it's because I'm born
Yeah.
in
No.
'96 and I like not thinking
Yeah.
about that
Good. Yeah, I
necessarily.
mean that's what we're saying. Whatever works for you. This
Yeah.
just, and that's another thing that I reflect on as a guitar player is what Trey said in one of his interviews when they were doing like gear, whatever those videos are on
Yeah, rig
YouTube, like
rundown kind of
rig
thing.
rundown.
Yeah.
And one of those, he says he's kind of like talking to the other guitar players in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
He said the number one thing for me, regardless of whatever I use, is that I know my gear.
Yeah.
And he says you will know your gear if you play with your gear,
Yes.
right?
That's very
So
true.
to me, some people may be thinking, God, he just keeps changing and investing. Why is he doing that and doing that? And by the way, I've always been trying to do it as cheaply as I can. That's
That's
why I
good.
do all
Yeah.
the work myself
Nice.
because
You kind of have to.
I have a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I change it because I play my gear and it's like it's
Something didn't
not.
work one
Yeah, I'm
night.
not. It's not quite there yet. I think I'm at a point now where I'm really, really, really happy.
Yeah. Same.
And that for me is the FID, the FYD
Very cool.
twin reverb preamp, which has a tank in it, an actual reverb
Yeah.
tank. And Mike did the mod that I
Very
guess
cool.
now has
Spud
evolved
mod.
in naming from Maestro to Spuds, which is a nod to Jerry
I love that.
because
Olden in the way nickname.
yeah, and I think it. might have been a sticker on alligator or something about
I think
spuds.
Josh was. I think he gets credit for that
Yeah.
nickname. Yeah, the rename.
Anyways, so he put his mod in. Now the reason why I like the mod is because what Mike was trying to do with the mod is get some overdrive from the input without getting that squashy Fender tone stack
Yeah.
that happens when it's too much turn the gain is too high,
Wow.
so that you can get a little bit of color, harmonics, some overdrive, grit, whatever you want to call it, in
Yep.
your tone at levels that are not ear splattering.
That makes a lot of sense to me and
So my rig
reinforces.
now is that FID,
Yeah.
and I'm actually playing a gig on Sunday, one of these driving gigs. So the
Cool.
bands
Oh, that's
bands
gonna be fun.
yeah, but there's a few bands that are playing, and everybody's got to wait till the other band is loaded in and loaded off. So we don't
Loaded
get a
up.
whole lot of time to play, but
Yeah.
we also don't get a whole lot of time to load in and out. So there's no way I was going to bring my Macintosh and
Yeah.
put that on the stage. Then my
Doesn't patch
preamp. So
everything together.
I got this little box that has my fit in it, and it has a QSC PLX 1600 power amp,
Perfect.
which is like 300 watts. And I got the reason why I picked that is because that's what John Kay said that he used on his gear page. He said
Okay.
he had QSC. When I was looking at it back in 2015, making
Yeah.
notes at what gears are guys
I've
using.
seen your gear page too. That's really cool.
Yeah,
You had one for a while.
yeah. I need to update that now.
I'm sure there's
But
been some
so that
changes.
the 1600 works great, but the 1600 has much lower input impedance than the
Hmm.
Macintosh.
Which
So
is a
like on the back of the FID,
200,000
right? You got it.
ohm, right? 200,000.
That's why 200. That's why you can slam the input with the full out of a twin. You don't need to turn. It's as if the gain, not the gain, but the output from the amp was full volume,
Yeah.
right? You just take the output before it
You
gets
don't
to
need
the
like a
Fender.
master section or a pad or anything for that.
Correct.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
you do need to turn it down. You need to pat it down
Yeah.
on other
On
amps.
quilters, you need to do it too. I found
Yeah.
that same
So
thing.
if guys are not doing that, or if you get the mod from Mike and you like are trying to use that full output into anything other than a Mac, you should turn it down
Yep. That's
because
great
it's going to
advice.
squash. So I turn it down to about 6 or 7, and
Cool.
it's beautiful tone. I love it.
I think
One
that's
speaker,
awesome.
one by 12. I've gone
That's
back
all
to
you
the
need.
K. I switch a lot, try different tones. Is it the
Yeah.
K? Is it the E that I like? I like the K. It's moving well for me.
I still
It's not
haven't
too loud on
decided.
stage.
There's so many good benefits to
I
both
don't
of
know
them.
how you do. You have those big. Every time I see you play, you have like 4 speakers. But I'll bet what's happening is it's not that loud, is
It's
it?
it's not really that
No,
loud. It's
right,
yeah. I keep it at a very reasonable like. It depends on the show, obviously, and if it's
right.
outdoors, I'll have 4 speakers, and it's kind of fun to turn. But like compared to Josh, who was saying he plays with his Macintosh at noon and guitar on 5, I'm keeping my Mac about half that, and guitar
Right.
still around 5 or 6. So
Right.
that's quiet.
Well, and that's another opportunity you have when you have an O bill, and if you're really trying to like uh, emulate kind of what Jerry was famous at, which was picking
Yes. Yeah.
extremely lightly. Like I can only imagine that if Jerry wasn't plugged in and he was practicing next to you on his electric, you probably wouldn't hear him.
Yeah.
And that's why the gain can be so high. And you notice Jerry, he's always adjusting the gain knob
Yep.
because the Mac is ready to blow your ears out, but the guitar is not that loud. It's
Yeah.
maybe halfway. And you have room then to grow.
Yes.
Now, it's
Exactly.
very hard to figure out how to use that because you can quickly pick too hard, and then it's like everybody in the band's looking at you like, what the hell
Yeah.
did you just do?
I forget who said this, and it might have been on this podcast, and it might not have been, but something stood out to me. I'm gonna mess up. Who's given? I'm not giving proper credit, but somebody that I like and respect said, "Yeah, if Jerry were to go out on stage, pick up his guitar, have it on 10, I think it might have been Jason. I don't know, and then strum a G chord." All 4 of the JBLs, bye bye. Those are
Oh
gone,
yeah.
and
Well,
it's
yeah,
true.
yeah, and I think that's part of the tone that you need to understand, which is that having that much power from a power amp perspective contributes to the tone.
Yes.
It's not about playing loud. It's about,
The
I think,
iron.
that
Yeah.
energy. I don't even know how it is,
Yeah.
how it works.
What?
So, but also what's interesting is like when you have all those speakers like you have, that's also creating different characteristics for the power amp. And
Yeah.
so that's good. I love your tone, and you don't need
Thank
to
you.
be loud at that,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Well, it's
I
cool.
just can't lug around even a two. I can't even lug around my two speaker hard truckers.
I
It's just too
this
heavy for
I
me.
guess they're not going to see it in this camera, but the two I have the three
Yeah,
speakers behind me, and one it's two E's and then a single E, and I only ever bring either a single E by itself or the two K cabinet. I think I have a mean green in there too,
yeah.
but the K is light enough to carry around. But I'm
Nah, you're a
like,
liar. You bring it all. Every
you
video I've ever
see, you
seen of you
see.
has all of them there.
No, no, no.
The
But
solo gig that you just had,
I
you
had a
had like
15 on the bottom. That was what I had,
right.
and then the
Oh,
212 up top. So it was
oh,
only three. Only
sorry,
three.
15. I
But
loved what you did, by the way. That was a really
thank
cool
you. Like,
performance.
shit. I mean,
That's hard to do, man.
it's something that
It's hard
it's
to do.
basically
And you
my
didn't use a looper or anything. You were
no
just like,
looper. That's just
I
me.
loved it.
Thank you,
I
man.
loved it.
Well, it's that's the kind of thing where like I don't have a big thing of original material, and I hope that one day I will, and that I write some fun tunes. But
Is that your goal?
yeah, that would be awesome. And I'm playing in an original band right now. My bandmates are
Sweet.
amazing songwriters, and they're so
Cool.
inspiring to me to get to hear them, play these songs that they're writing. It's incredible. And I'm bringing the Jerry tone to the band, but it's not a Grateful Dead band, and we play Fire on the Mountain maybe and like Althea. So, I get to have my moments on stage where I'm like, fuck yeah, this is it. but
Awesome.
but it to me it's about like eventually incorporating this sound into original music. So when
Right.
I have a solo show, I'm like, shit, I'm in Massachusetts and I've spent my whole life in the South wishing there were more deadheads, so I might as well take advantage of living in Massachusetts, and I'm going to play nothing but Grateful Dead because I won't get complained at.
Good. Man. God bless you. Love it.
Thanks, man. It's just I was like, yeah, gotta be happy when I play, and that was one of the things. Why not shake the rust off with like a solo Dead set and be Jerry, be Bobby, whatever, be me,
That's
and
it,
see
man.
if
Be
we can make
you.
it happen.
I think I've mentioned everything I want to
That
mention.
was an incredible podcast. I
Wait,
think
I
we
just want to let me give a couple
yes,
shout
please,
outs,
please,
okay?
please, yes.
To the Detroit bands, because part of also what got me really excited in 2015 was looking at who's playing Grateful Dead in my hometown.
Yeah,
And there were a couple bands at that time. Some are still around and some are not. Dead Again
cool,
with Brian,
Brian,
Eving, and Phil Nathan. They're like the Jerry Bobby guys. They kill it.
awesome.
So really good. And but we're all different. So that's what I also really
Yep,
like. We're none of the bands are the same.
yeah.
And another band that was around for a long time was well, I'm not going to say who was there. Let me say who is here now. Okay,
Okay, let's
because
do it.
then we'll get all right. So Dead Again. Then there was Dedicated when
Yep.
they're still around,
Shout out, dedicated.
and cool band called Super Crunch
Cool.
with Evan Perry, killer guitar
I
player
think
in
I've
that band.
seen his name maybe. Not
Yeah,
sure.
another band called well, there's Raising the Dead. That's the band I'm in now,
Cool.
and we just got a new a female singer, so
Awesome.
we're gonna get that going. Another band called Royal Grand
Cool.
with Michael Bush, and Michael Bush is in another band called Dead at the Winery, and they're really cool because we have a local brewery
That's fun.
in the city of Northville called the Northville Winery, and they play every Thursday night. From 2015, I don't think they've missed a Thursday except during
Oh,
the
yeah,
pandemic.
pandemic.
And every show they play is like a Dark Star Orchestra kind of. We're going to recreate
Recreate,
the
focus on
set list
this.
from that day. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, and that's Michael Bush and Rob Nelson, and Mike's played with me a couple of times. I'm also one of these guys like I invite people. I love to invite people to play with me.
It's awesome.
So Brian, I haven't played with Brian on stage, but we played at his house. But on stage, Michael Bush from Royal Grand, this guy Adam Bodeep, who's got a Facebook page called Dedicated Jams.
Okay. Yeah, I think Adam. Yes, I know that
Adam
name and
Bodeep,
I know
right?
the Facebook page, but
He's like you. He's like, and he went to Wayne State Music School,
very
and he's
cool.
total guitar player, but he loves Jerry licks, and
Yeah,
he just transcribes
I
them.
love him.
Yeah. And other shout outs, and then I guess we'll be done, is where's my list? Oh, right. People Movers Band. They broke up, and I got their drummer,
Oh,
and
nice.
and that's Joseph Waldecker, and he's a killer multi instrumentalist. He's a
Very
drummer in
cool.
my band, and Lori, who was the singer in that band,
Singer.
she's going to be the singer in my band.
Awesome.
But I wanted to give them a shout out.
So
That's
there's
part of the pedigree.
good stuff
And
on
we
the
mentioned
horizon.
Brian. We mentioned Brian Coogan. This guy that also reminds me totally of you. Another hot. When I say hot, like
No,
musician,
no,
hot
I get it.
musician,
I get it. Thanks.
young gun. His name is Nicholas Orr. He's in a band called Pajamas.
Nicholas Orr. I've seen his name for sure
You
on
should
Facebook,
check
but
him out.
okay, awesome.
He's like blends Jerry and Trey,
Oh,
and he
cool.
has an open body PRS and plays through a
That's
Fender
my dream guitar right there.
twin
That'd be fun.
stack, twin stack preamp, and
Cool.
it's just beautiful. And I mentioned Michael and Rob, and my one story, and then we'll wrap
Let's
it
do
up,
it.
okay? Because
Perfect.
this is the serendipity. The Oh, and I wanted to give a quote too that I wanted to mention. We were talking about David, which is one of the reasons why
David
I like
Haynes.
playing music. It's
Yeah.
like music is expression, it's a language. Nobody knows what it feels like to the listener. Only the listener knows, right?
Hmm.
And but you can kind of think about it as when you're playing in a band and everybody is working together like a chamber ensemble.
Yeah.
What the audience hears is they hear a little bit of Matt, they hear a little bit of Dave, hear a little bit of Bill on bass,
Hmm.
a little bit of Max on keyboards, a little bit of Joe on drums, a little
Yeah.
bit of Laurie singing, but it all comes together like a gestalt.
Single source.
And David Gann said this one quote called "It creates spontaneous mid-air architecture,"
Very cool.
and I just
That
love
is
that quote,
awesome.
right?
Yeah, it does. I
And
want
that's
to
kind
say
of
I've
like how
heard
an
that.
orchestra works, right? Like when you're an audience member in an orchestra, you're like, wow, that bassoonist did a killer, played the lick. But
Yeah.
when everybody's playing, it's like this, it comes together, left ear, right ear, and then your brain kind of does its
And
thing.
it's very true that it is mid-air because all of our,
Yeah,
the rest of the band is not coming through the stack behind you. You're
right,
coming through the stack behind you, and by the time
right,
that sound reaches the audience, it's mixed. That's pretty cool.
right.
Wow.
And I wanted to give out the shout outs to guitar players that I listen to and study to. And I think if you're interested in this, you should check them out. Of course,
Please, yes.
Stu Allen from Mars Hotel.
Yes.
Love his style. I mean, he's very consistent too with his tone. I think he's
Yeah.
stick SMS.
Cool.
He's got a Macintosh 2100 and he has two E120s.
Awesome.
Every time he plays, that's always
That's
what he
what it
uses.
is. Very nice.
That's it. Of course, Josh, right? I love Josh's new band. The Birdsong Quartet is killer.
So good.
Wasn't that
That
cool?
was awesome. I haven't seen the entire thing, but I still that's
Yeah.
like on my queue
Yeah.
of watching.
It's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. I know what you're saying. Garrett DeLoyan, Jerry's middle finger,
Yep.
is killing it. And I think he's using Quilter.
I
So,
wouldn't be surprised. I don't know his
yeah.
rig. I just added him as a
Yeah.
friend recently, but
Yeah. John Kay, like I learn a lot from John Kay. When I try to play tunes that I've never played before,
yeah,
I'm actually not, I don't necessarily start with the Grateful Dead if I'm trying to figure out what Jerry was doing.
cool,
I've been listening to Further a lot, Further
cool.
when John Kay was in it.
Okay.
And don't underestimate
Yeah.
John's prowess. He's an
Oh yeah.
amazing guitar player.
I.
And Jeff Madsen, of course, and
Yep.
Vic DeRobertis from Playing Dead.
Very cool.
A guy that I just learned about, Packy Lundholm, who
Don't know the
is from
name.
Chicago. He's in a band called the Cream Puff Warriors.
Cool. Oh, I have seen the band name then before.
And this recent stream that Terrapin Flyer just did
Yeah.
at the drive-in, I was looking forward to seeing Josh, but it was
Yeah.
Packy was the guitar player.
Whoa. Very cool.
Check that out, man.
Okay.
Packy, really, really good.
I'll have to
Great
check it out.
tone, good interpretation. And then some other guys that are like maybe not quite like these other guys I mentioned. I think Jerry is in their pedigree of what they wanted to sound like,
Yes.
even though they're their own players.
Yeah. Exactly.
Then some other guys that are more like a John Mayer approach, like Mark Karen, who's insane,
Cool.
right? Mark was in the other ones, and
Okay.
with Steve Kimmock. Steve Kimmock is
It's
insane.
insane. Absolutely
Um,
insane.
Jimmy Herring, of course.
Yep. How?
John
Yeah.
McLaughlin.
Yeah.
This guy that I learned about in Detroit, who was ended up being a runner-up for the winner of The Voice. Believe it or not, his name is Laith Al Saadi. So his first name is Laith,
Okay.
Laith, and his last name is Al Saadi, Al-Saadi. Check him out.
Okay. Awesome.
And he is a killer guitar player that likes to play everything. He plays some dead
Awesome.
tunes, lots of originals. His voice is insane. That's why he was on the competition, The
Yeah.
Voice.
Exactly.
He ended up almost winning it.
That's great. My.
And part of the reason why he almost won it is because he was backing himself up and he was shredding. I think he played either Dear Mr. Fantasy
Oh
or Dear
shit.
Dear Prudence into Blind Faith. Can't Find My Way Home,
That's
and
so
just
cool.
these huge, deep, rich, overdriven solos.
Yep.
And I just wanted to give a shout out to him
That's
because
awesome.
when I watch him, I learn stuff every time.
Yeah. That's wow. That's really funny.
And this guy Jay Ferris, man,
Nah. Hey,
you are
thank you, man.
awesome.
I
You are
appreciate it.
awesome. You
This is.
really are.
I would. Same to you, man. And I'm so just so thrilled that people are like, yeah, we'll talk. Yeah, let's go
Sure.
talk. And the fact that you come on here and you have this much information to share with us, I'm so grateful, and I know that the audience is as well. And
Well,
I'm
thank you.
it's awesome to have people that are engaged in and asking questions. And I think my favorite thing is like the people who have sent me messages, not like, hey, I should be on the podcast, but like, hey, there's this player you should check out, or like there's this person that they're doing good stuff and I really think you need to talk to them. And it's people like that keep the show going, and it's people like yourself coming on and having this amazing just source of you are a wealth of knowledge. And I had such a blast learning about your credentials and your background, and
Thank you.
I had no idea. I thought you were a professor. Who played dead, and that
Right.
while that's true, there are so many other facets here. So what a great time.
Well, I
Yeah.
wish that I had the time and competency, I would say, really, because I am very humble in the fact that I think I don't play very well, but I like to play music, and I
It's
wish I
great.
had the competency and the energy to make it a full-time gig because
Yeah.
I would just that that was always my desire as a
Yeah,
little kid
exactly.
to do it. So
Yeah.
you might say I'm a little frustrated, but I get rid of my frustration by playing music.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's what it's
and
there
to
for.
me, the ability to play in a tribute band to an audience and have people come and say, like when I started playing with Raising the Dead after being sick, so many people said, "Wow, it's so good to see you back on stage
I
again."
was
Like
yeah.
that is
I
awesome.
mean, you were
I love
you were
that.
one of those people when I saw you were sick. It was a bummer. Like you're like, oh shit, one of our. It's a family in many ways, even though
Yeah,
it's all virtual, online. But
yeah.
I'm happy that these connections are being made, and I'm so happy to see you're playing again and that you're making new stuff. And I'm as always will be looking out for your awesome playing and tone on the
Thank you,
internet. And
sir. Thank you,
man,
Jay.
Dr. Cole, thank you for joining us.
Mr. Ferris. All
it
right.
was it was a blast. That was great.
Peace out.
Peace out. We'll talk soon.
All right, you too.
Cheers.